Welcome in to Daily Faceoff Live, your go-to source for everything hockey. Live every weekday at noon Eastern.
Happy Canada Day, and more importantly, I suppose, happy Free Agent Day in the NHL. July 1st, the start of what feels like the new year in the National Hockey League. I'm Tyler Yaremchuk, and you are tuned in to the Daily Faceoff Live Free Agent Special, streaming live on the Daily Faceoff YouTube, and it's all brought to you by Betano and Betano.ca. Things are bumping over on that Daily Faceoff YouTube, and we're looking for your hottest free agent predictions. So drop them in there. We'll be getting to that. I'm going to be joined by our entire team here at Daily Faceoff throughout the day. We'll chat with Matt Larkin, Nick Alberga. We'll have the Players Room with Jay Rosehill and Mike McKenna, which was a beautiful, unhinged part of our trade deadline coverage. And most importantly, we will have our NHL insider, Frank Seravalli, along for the ride. Frank, free agency, couple hours underway here around the NHL. A couple of minor notes throughout the day. But first off, let's just start with, what are you expecting today? Maybe on a scale of 1 to 10, what's the craziness level for today? Is it low, or did all of those buyouts and non-qualifies, did that maybe add some juice to what we're going to see here on July 1?
Yeah, it's probably about a 7, Tyler, and I think heading into the weekend, it was about a 5. There's been a redistribution of players available and talent that's been infused into the marketplace with some of those buyouts. When you have Matt Duchene and Blake Wheeler and some other guys even further down the depth chart, Kyler Yamamoto, Mike Riley bought out, 21-goal scorer Daniel Sprong not receiving a qualifying offer. There's a bunch of younger-ish players that are available, and I think the story of this 2023 class of free agency is not really the guys at the top 10 on the board, the guys you see at the very bottom of your screen. To me, where the real intrigue is for a 4th consecutive year with a flat or frozen salary cap, there's going to be bargain bin buys that are available today that can improve your team on the margin. So I think teams are pretty hungry to do that, especially with limited cap space. They're trying to mine some diamonds in the rough, and I think there's plenty of those to be had on the market this year in particular. So the guys that are going to be squeezed are the guys in the NHL's middle class. The stars always get their money. The guys at the very bottom are always able to sign low, short-term, short money deals. And it's that, sort of $4, $5, $6 million range in AAV where guys tend to get squeezed. And you'll see a few of those guys end up signing today, but I wouldn't be surprised at all to see this free agent class linger on a little bit. It used to be that on day 1, there's been an absolute flurry of activity. And then on day 2, as Brad Treliving said the other day, you could pretty much just go fishing. That's not really the case anymore. And I think there's going to be plenty of action to start. But I can tell you, having done this for a while now, usually I have a long list of deals that are already in the bucket and completed. And I can tell you that there's a handful, but it's not like it normally is. So what that means to me is there's going to be a lot that develops throughout the course of today. But there are certainly a few things that are getting done if you want to start there.
Yeah, okay, so let's start with one that seems to be just coming down the pipe, and it's the latest on Oliver Ekman-Larsson. What can you tell us about the former Canucks D-man?
Yeah, so 2 weeks ago, Daily Faceoff Live, we reported the Florida Panthers had significant interest right out of the chute from his buyout with the Vancouver Canucks. He's heading to the Panthers on a 1-year, $2.25 million deal. And if you're surprised to see that before 12 noon, well, he was able to negotiate because he has been bought out and a free agent, and he can execute that contract after 12 noon. So that is done. That is agreed to terms. And the Panthers had set their sights on getting at least one of those inexpensive buyout guys that are in the market to double dip, whether it was Ekman-Larsson or potentially Matt Dumba, or pick another guy, John Klingberg, coming off of what was a tough season last year, split between Anaheim and Minnesota. They really wanted to try and get one of those guys locked up to say, we've got cap trouble. We've got a team that went to the Stanley Cup final, great place to live, less pressure. Come here, reboot your career. Let's use each other. We'll give you an incredible opportunity, especially to start the year. Brandon Montour, and Aaron Ekblad, both out potentially for the first couple months. You'll get power play time. You'll get everything on a team that has a chance to win the Stanley Cup. And then when it's all done, we'll shake your hand and you can head off into free agency next summer and cash in, hopefully, when the cap goes up $4 to $5 million.
The chat is buzzing with what I'm assuming is a lot of listeners of Leafs Morning Take here. They're all here to see Rosehill and Alberga. But Frank, they also want to know about Ryan Reaves. What can you tell us about the Reaves to Leafs rumblings?
Yeah, Ryan Reaves is expected to head to the Toronto Maple Leafs. I don't think the actual AAV has been worked out yet, but it will be, or is expected to be, a 3-year deal, somewhere between $1.15 and $1.3 million on the AAV. And if that surprises some people in our chat and say, oh, what an overpayment for a guy who's 36 and really doesn't do a whole lot aside from being a great teammate and an intimidation factor, the real truth is, one, he had some really enticing offers out there on the table from the Minnesota Wild, and also deals that were at higher AAVs. Minnesota wanted to keep him. I think the Los Angeles Kings were another team that had expressed a ton of interest. Ryan Reaves had sort of been like the white whale for Brad Treliving in Toronto now that he's with the Maple Leafs. He'd been trying to get his hands on him for a while and wasn't able to. And I think he just wants to add a little bit of edge and a different element to the Toronto Maple Leafs. So I think it's going to be one of those deals that, maybe for this season and next looks good. Maybe at age 39, one of those deals that you end up plugging in the minors with the Toronto Marlies if need be. But given where that cap hit is expected to come in, not expected to be an issue then.
All right, a big welcome to everybody who's just tuning in on the Daily Faceoff YouTube. We are just 13 minutes into our show today, and it's already popping off in there. Frank, we are going to let you go. We're going to let you get back to working the phones and breaking some signings for us. And for a good portion of today's show, people watching are going to get a chance to keep an eye on you up in the Insider Cam. So we look forward to everything you got for us today, Frankie.
Looking forward to it, guys. Let's go.
So here's how things are going to work. When Frank breaks a signing, we got a little bit of like an order of operations we do on these shows. The first thing that happens is our pal Nick Alberga stops by and gives us some instant reaction to what's happening. So let's bring in Nick Alberga now here, AB. Nick, you just heard us talking a little bit about Ryan Reaves. You are the host of Leafs Morning Take. You also do some fantasy work over at dailyfaceoff.com. And not that Ryan Reaves is going to be making any sort of fantasy articles for you, but for the team you cover in the Toronto Maple Leafs, is this a move that you think will have a positive impact, or is this a GM who's maybe looking in the wrong direction?
Well, first and foremost, Tyler, happy Canada Day. Great to be with everybody and taking our Saturday and covering the NHL. I think it's fantastic. To answer your question, I think it's fascinating on many levels, as Frank brought up. I think the unique thing to look at when this proposed deal does come to fruition, we think in the next hour, is a 3-year term, right? The fact that he's 36. But, call me old school, call me traditional. I don't care. I guess I'm anti-Dubas. There's so many pro-Dubas people out there that hate the signing, and they're just going to shit on everything that Brad Treliving does. But I think ultimately this team is looking for a facelift. They're looking for some character. I think clearly they did their homework on a guy like Ryan Reaves. I think what he can do for that room to drag them through the fight. Like Rosie and I talk about this a lot. You need guys like that. That's why we love Luke Schenn. That's why I love Ryan O'Reilly. You need as many guys as possible like that. And I think at the very least, Ryan Reaves is a big-time locker room guy. He's liked wherever he plays. And I don't mind it. Like, I think 3 years is quite a bit, but it's the price of doing business. And as I always like to tell Jay Roselle, the salary cap's going up. So it's not as bad. A lot of people weren't fans of the David Kampf signing as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. On top of that, another guy who's located out in Toronto is Matt Larkin. Let's bring him in here and also give the fans a chance to see what that insider cam in the top corner looks like. Look at Frank up there. Matt, we don't have the terms yet on the Reaves deal, so I'll save your player grade on that, or your signing grade on that, for a little bit later. But I want to pick your brain a bit about Oliver Ekman-Larsson. 1 year, hearing the reports, I think are 2.25, waiting for confirmation on that. 1 year, 2.25 for OEL in Florida. What's your grade there?
The grade for me is a B. I think it's a fairly low-risk acquisition for the Florida Panthers. We know, as Frank said, that blue line is really banged up. And for OEL himself, 1 year away from the cap going up, it's a great time to bet on yourself for a year. And hopefully, in his case, play some sheltered minutes. I think he might be replacing what we had from Mark Stahl. We know Mark Stahl is not re-signed yet in Florida, right? So he's going to be on that left side. I think with sheltered minutes, it's an opportunity for Ekman-Larsson to puff up those numbers. Like Frank said, maybe some power play time. Had a bit of a rough go, especially on the defensive side of the puck in his time with Vancouver. So I don't think he's going to move the needle defensively, but he's still mobile. He can still move the puck. The only question I have, and why it's only a B, is where is the help going to be on the right side of that defense? We know, of course, Brandon Montour, Aaron Ekblad, they are both righties. And that is where there's the big hole because of the matching shoulder surgeries for both of them with the Florida Panthers. So I assume that Bill Zito has another move coming that will fortify that right side.
Yeah, fair enough. We got a good comment here in the YouTube chat. It's from Riku, who says it's 11:15 a.m. I've heard Ryan Reaves' name more than I should have today. So before I let you guys go and we bring in our players room panel with Rosie and McKenna, our top five: Orlov, Bertuzzi, Comfort, Graves, and Killorn. That's what Frank has here. Nick, I'll start with you. Give me a prediction for one of those five, a spot where you look at one of those big names and go, I like that fit right there.
I would say Dmitry Orlov. I just think it's so hard to find top four defensemen, and I think more times than not they get paid. I think in general, guys, like today's going to be a major reality check for a lot of players. I think you look at the market, and I just think it's so fascinating. We enter a UFA class, and Vladimir Tarasenko's there, and Jonathan Taves is there, and Patrick Kane's there, but all the conversation, as we've mentioned, is with guys like Ryan Reaves. Like I think it's going to be a day for bargain deals the next couple of days. Like Max Pacioretty is a guy, I know he's on the top five to your question, but like he's a guy who would fascinate me because I do think he's the type of player that you can get on the cheap and he can actually help put your roster over the top, right, Matt?
Absolutely. Max Pacioretty is going to be one to watch. Of course, he's a candidate to sign one of those bonus-laden contracts as well, only 34 years old, but because of the amount of time that he missed with his injury, he's actually eligible to sign one of those deals. So it's a perfect setup for him to sign something that's really laden with later bonuses, and it's almost a cheat code. I've heard the talk of Pacioretty being a fit for the Colorado Avalanche, and that's absolutely a scary thought for me. If that Achilles is healing up well, I still think Pacioretty, he still has it, right? He only played 5 games for Carolina this year, scored 3 goals. We know he hasn't lost that goal scoring ability in his stick. So to me, just because of the fact we know he's going to be at a low AAV, he's a potential needle mover. The other name, of course, Tyler Bertuzzi, because he brings that jam, that mix of skill and jam. He was a great fit for the Boston Bruins, and with Taylor Hall gone now, I still wonder if they're going to try and fit him under their cap. But other teams I think that would be interesting fits, the Carolina Hurricanes. We know they need help at forward. We saw when they were depleted in the playoffs how much they needed it. And the Toronto Maple Leafs. I've said they need heavy skill, not just heavy. Ryan Reaves, he might bring the heavy, but you have to have some heavy that can also bring skill and play in the top part of the lineup. So if there's a way to fit him into Toronto, I think Bertuzzi's a nice fit there too.
There you go, boys. Appreciate you guys hopping on. We'll be chatting with you a lot here over the remainder of our 2-hour show. Matt Larkin, Nick Alberga, instant reaction and player grades from those two. We also have the return of our players room with Jay Rosehill and Mike McKenna, former NHL enforcer, former NHL goaltender as well. Gentlemen, I'll pick your brain on some of the free agents that are lingering around. But first, I want to get the classic question. What was your experience like in free agency as a player, Rosie? Maybe take us through the mindset of what a player sitting there on day one is kind of thinking about and what they're going through.
Yeah, it's exciting. You know, it's an open slate to figure out what your next few years are going to look like. You're nearby your phone, your agent's sending you little updates. He's giving you hints on what could happen. You're giving your input on, you've already had your conversations with him. This is what I like. This is what we feel. This is what I'm looking for. This is what I value. And, I haven't been through it a whole lot. I seem to, have signed beforehand and only a couple times went through free agency, but it's a fun time and you're looking at opportunities. You get a hint of some kind of a rumor or something that's close, and you and your wife start Googling the town or the city and start figuring out what that looks like. You're looking at their pipeline and what they have to offer and who's coaching what, and you're just brushing up, and it's an exciting time.
I didn't think it was very exciting. I thought it was scary. I didn't like it, man, because I just wanted to make sure I got another job, Rosie. Like you were a little bit more desired than I think I was, and it was just a bevy of 1-year deals, man. So like for me, I really liked the period where we were able to talk to teams leading up to free agency. When that suddenly was allowed within the CBA, that made my life a lot less stressful, because more often than not, that first deal across the table or the first team to walk across the dance floor and say, I like you. I went, I like you too, because you want to pay me again. So for me, it was mostly take the first deal across the table. But those last couple of years, man, I did have my second to last year, man. I didn't have anything going into free agency, right? And I went on a trip I'm in Portland, Oregon on an anniversary trip with my wife. And all of a sudden I had two like good options to choose from. And I was like, I've never had this before. It was literally the only time I ever had to decide. My gut told me, let's go to Dallas. That turned out to be the right decision. So, man, Rosie, we had pretty opposite experiences, I think.
Sometimes, I mean, to me, like if you're playing in an organization or say you're coming off your entry level contract, you're pigeonholed to that organization, what their pipeline looks like, what their depth chart looks like, who their coaches are. You're just pigeonholed into that. And to go into free agency, it's like, wow, I'm opened up to absolutely everything. And a guy like me isn't going to be having offers thrown at them left, right, and center by everybody. But at least you know that if there is someone looking for someone like you, you're open to go there. You're not held back by anything. And that's kind of the exciting part to me. But 100% scary as well. Like you're never guaranteed anything. A journeyman guy has no idea if his career is going to be 2 years or 10 years. And there's an element of that too. But I think that's what makes it exciting.
Rosie, did you ever have a year where you didn't like the options and you just had to swallow the pill?
I think my whole career was that way. But I got traded a decent amount. Tampa traded me to Toronto. I got traded during the lockout to Philadelphia. So there's a couple things. Look at that bingo jersey, baby.
That one there, swallowing the pill. I had Ottawa about 32nd out of 32 teams where I wanted to sign in 2018, but that's what I had, so I took it.
Yeah, sometimes things happen, and there are better years than others. And, I remember my first one-way contract ever was one of the times I was in free agency, and Toronto offered it to me. I was at a wedding. I was like, had a little buzz going on, and we were in Vancouver, and I got this thing that says, we're at a one-way now, bud, just working out the details. And I was just like, oh my God, like I don't have to worry about trying to make the team out of training camp. Am I going to make $100,000 this year or $700,000? Like it's so different, and it's just that weight off your shoulders solidifies like, my God, we're going to have a good year here. Like somebody wants me enough to commit to me. And it's a really good feeling.
How quick did you have your tarp off and the tie around your head?
Probably wasn't too long after that, to be honest.
Maybe in advance.
That is good.
Look at
stuff.
Frank up there working the phone, dude. He's giving her up there in the insider box, man.
Yeah, we can see on the bottom there, number 11, Oliver Ekman-Larsson is off the board. I rattled off the top 5 a little bit earlier to Larkin and Alberga. Let's dig into the hockey talk a little bit here. You got Orlov, Bertuzzi, Comfort, Graves, and Killorn. Those are the big 5 we're watching today, gentlemen. Mike, when you look at them, I'll ask you, a slam dunk fit? Like, it's kind of weird because in past years, even though that negotiating window that you talked about, Mike, that's gone away, last year it felt like we kind of knew with a lot of the big names. It was like, okay, this guy's kind of been narrowed down to 1 or 2 spots. This guy, we think he's going here right when the window opens. With the top 5 right now, again, Orlov, Bertuzzi, Comfort, Graves, Killorn, we haven't heard much of a lot with any of them.
Yeah, and I kind of feel like Killorn, if there's any of those 5 who may return, I think Killorn still would have a decent chance with Tampa Bay, knowing that they moved a little bit of money around with the Colton deal to try to make that work. And of course, they still have RFAs to sign, right? Tanner Jeannot's still in that mix with Tampa as well. Bertuzzi's a real wild card for me because I was surprised that after the Bruins moved out Hall, presumably to give cap space to re-sign Bertuzzi, he's going to go test free agency. So that tells me he's chasing a big deal. Where that's going to come from, I'm not 100%. The one that I love that I think would be an absolute home run would be Orlov to Buffalo. If they would swing for the fences, Kevin Adams, and give him the deal that he'd like, even if it's big money, if you put Dmitry Orlov alongside Rasmus Dahlin, Owen Power, Samuelson, like, man, that top 4D looks really scary, and they've got a lot of scoring up front. So that's one that I can think of off the top that would work. And I think Comfort is still going to be pretty valuable on the market, but there's trade options at center, Rosie. So I'm not sure if Comfort's going to go anywhere as a number 2 center or a number 3, and I think that's going to affect his pay grade.
Yeah, to me, everything boils down to the Maple Leafs just by the nature of the beast here. But, you look at that Tyler Bertuzzi, and, I remember going back to trade deadline day and the way the Boston Bruins were adding, and it was like as on fire as they were all year long. Every time they added somebody, you're like, my God, these guys are an absolute machine right now. And I pictured Bertuzzi staying there kind of long term after a potentially very successful run to the Stanley Cup. We all know that didn't happen. Now you're starting to think, well, okay, this guy could go anywhere. And you look at him the addition he could add to the Leafs with the cap room that they do have left, which isn't a ton, but a guy like him that's, that top six guy, I like the way he plays. You could mix that in and, a little bit further down the board there too, you see Ryan O'Reilly. And, I honestly, I got to say, I thought we'd have him locked up by now. It hasn't happened. Same with Schenn. Guys that are down the line a little bit more, you're wondering, you had your idea of where they were going to fit and what was going to happen. And when it doesn't pan out, you're wondering, holy smokes, what does this look like on both sides of the table?
Yeah. And that's the hard part for that team, is that you're still trying to move everything, right? My hometown team, St. Louis, so it's kind of like the same thing there, where they're really struck by their cap right now, and I'm not sure there's going to be a whole lot of moves there at all. But from the top five that Frank has on his list, we go Orlov, Bertuzzi, Comfort, Graves, Killorn. Graves, that's your secondary defenseman that's available. And his contract's probably going to project in the $5-6 million range at least, especially if Orlov goes for big money. It might be $6 million. So Tyler, looks like you got something going here.
AFP has Graves projected at 5 by 5.1. They're the model that Frank kind of used for all of his projections, And I want to talk about a guy who rocketed up into the top 10 yesterday, and that's Matt Duchene out in Nashville. Frank had reported that the marching orders, so to say, for Barry Trotz in Nashville were to change the culture of that team a little bit. But I'll be honest, I didn't see a Matt Duchene buyout coming. I don't know if Matt Duchene really saw a Matt Duchene buyout coming, but he's up there at number 9. And this is a fascinating case for me. He's 32, so he still should have a couple of decent seasons left in the tank. He scored 22 goals last year, 43 goals the year before as well. I was stunned that Nashville took on what is now basically 6 years of dead cap space when you add the 3 afterwards. But Mike, what do you think about Matt Duchene now being a free agent talk?
Well, he's going to be a value option for somebody, and a pretty good one at that. I don't think he's going to be a number 1 center, but think about the teams that need help down the middle. Minnesota could use it, but they're completely tied up with the cap. If Duchene says, okay, I'll play for you for almost nothing, would they take that? Thing is, he just got bought out in Nashville because Barry Trotz is changing the culture completely around. I don't see Billy Guerin going for that. I think the keys to this, and especially the center market, is what happens in Boston. If Bergeron and Krejci, if they're not coming back, if there's any inkling that could happen, they have to backfill that. Duchene's a guy that I think would be perfect for that role, Rosie, to come in 1-2 year deal until Boston gets things figured out, because they will need a little bit of help at that position.
Yeah, you bet. And it's kind of surprising it didn't work out in Nashville. I think it seemed like he liked it personally wise. He's into music. He's into the scene in there, and it seemed to fit well. A little bit of a drop off this year with his goal production, but he's very capable of putting up those big numbers, as Tyler mentioned, 40-some goals the year before. So, I mean, anything's possible with him, as you said, 30-some years old. He's not like he's 37 years old. I think a player of his caliber has got lots to offer still. And I think he and his agent right now are also crunching the numbers just as you did, saying who really needs my help, who really is going to value me. And I don't think he really saw himself in this position. And I imagine they're scrambling to crunch the numbers just like we are, trying to figure out where the best fit is.
Mike, earlier this week on Daily Faceoff Live, we had you project kind of how you see the goalie market playing out. Tristan Jarry is the number 1 option on Frank's board at number 13. Both Jonas Korpisalo and Frederik Andersen sit in the top 20 as well. Let's bring in our insider, Frank Seravalli. Let's throw this thing into a little 4-box here and talk about the goalie market. Frank, what are you hearing with maybe some of the high-end names, but also maybe some buy-low candidates?
Yeah, so the buy low candidate market has been fascinating. So we do know a couple deals that are already believed to be in the hopper, and that is Jonathan Quick going to the New York Rangers. That will be for less than $1 million. We have Cam Talbot going to the Los Angeles Kings. That's not a done deal, by the way. There's lots of speculation on that front. And the idea would be to have a tandem between Talbot and Copley. The Kings would be going the inexpensive route, which is interesting for a team that I think actually has a real chance to win next year. But then after that, I'm telling you right now, it's wide open. You've got Jarry, you've got Korpisalo and Andersen, as you mentioned. Semyon Varlamov, he's out there. I think he would be a great fit in New Jersey, but I'm not entirely certain that they can afford him. On the lesser or lower tier, you've got Antti Raanta, Martin Jones, Anthony Stolars, Lauren Brossoit, And Mackenzie Blackwood is floating out there now. And that really, to me, is one of the most fascinating developments of the week. The Sharks traded a 6th-round pick for him earlier. Mike Greer knows Mackenzie Blackwood. He was one of the Devils' assistant coaches and saw him firsthand when he was at the peak of his powers. Here's the thing. The market for Blackwood, Mike, has been stronger than I would have envisioned. They were probably thinking they could get him somewhere south of what Ilya Samsonov signed for last year in Toronto at 1.8. And it sounds like he's actually going to be closer to $3 million on the open market today than he is $2. So he has the pedigree and the skill set. That part is fascinating. Speaking of Samsonov, I'm told that the Leafs, once they get a new deal done with him, are set with Samsonov and Joe Woll. That's their thinking. No shock there. But here's another wrinkle to the goalie market. There's some stuff floating out there this morning about some trades. I did check in. It seems unlikely at this point, but there seemed to be some speculation about a potential trade of Jake Allen in Montreal. You've got Dan Vladar as an extra piece in Calgary. Logan Thompson's name has been out there in Vegas. And here's a new one, and it's a bit of a spicy one because he was on stage collecting some hardware at the NHL Awards. But I'm told that there's been more talk about Linus Ullmark potentially being on the move in Boston. So probably not all that surprising to Mike. His value is the highest that it will ever be at this exact moment in time. But he's coming off of an absolute all-world season and is locked up with term at a number that's really quite reasonable for the production that he had. So the Bruins have some really difficult decisions to make. They're bargain basement hunting on the free agent market today and have a lot of holes to fill on their roster. Keep an eye on Linus Ullmark.
Mike, what are your thoughts on that? The reigning Vezina Trophy winner potentially up for grabs.
Well, yesterday I heard that I don't think Sweeney wanted to bring back 2 goaltenders, Swayman and Ullmark, if he could help it, because of the price factor that's involved, because Swayman is also due a new contract here as an RFA, and it's going to be pretty pricey. The Bruins could easily be looking at $9 million in goalies in a big hurry. So I am surprised, though, that Ullmark would be the name dangled, only because, again, reigning Vezina, he's the sure bet. I think his play's been more consistent than Swayman's, but again, at that dollar figure, the haul that you could get back if you're going to give up cap space, that's the trade-off that you have to make. So the Blackwood news, though, is astonishing to me. This is a guy who hasn't been healthy for 3 years, much less played well for 2.5, and to get $3 million to me shows you that this goalie market is all between $3 and $6 million, man. Like even the bargain basement deals, unless you're John Quick taking the, this is a fantasy tour for him to come back to the Rangers to finish his career there. That's what this is, right? It's 1 year with your hometown team. I'm not sure I like that deal because I think it's going to be oil and water with him with the goalie coach. But Rosie, I'm curious your take when it comes to Toronto, because I like the Woll-Samsonov combo. I wrote an article on it a couple months ago or a month ago at Daily Faceoff. What's your take from the Toronto Insider View?
Yeah, I like both of them. Samsonov kind of stood up and proved himself to be, the leading man in Toronto kind of midway through the season. And good on him. He reinvented himself. He bet on himself, taking that deal in Toronto. Gave himself a chance to step up and play good. And when he was good, boy, was he good, man. He can play steady, solid minutes. We kind of had that 1-2 punch with him and Murray. And, Murray played some solid minutes too. I mean, he's just the nightmare that Dubas left us with is what everyone's thinking. But keep in mind, when he was playing and when he was healthy, he put in some solid performances and he can still play goalie quite well. He's just, you can't bet on him. You can't rely on him. He's too prone to injury. And I mean, you sit there and wonder, like, can we buy this guy out? Can we put him on long-term IR? Can we package him up in someone that's willing to chew up that cap? I don't know. But, with Joseph Woll coming up and his pedigree, I know you know him personally. This kid looks like he's ready. Everything about him. I don't know as much about the X's and O's of playing goalie as you, obviously. But when you have a goaltender in there who's just big, poised, calm, when there's mayhem going around outside of you and that person's just calm in position and makes effortless saves and always seems to be in the spot, my God, it just breeds confidence throughout the whole building, everyone watching, and that includes the bench, obviously. And I think Woll's ready for the NHL, and it doesn't surprise me they're going with the 1-2 punch of those two.
So let me ask you this, Rosie, about Woll, because you digest all the media that comes out of Toronto. From his interactions with media, his non-social media, he has no social media at all. Like, do you think Woll is somebody who can handle the pressures of playing there? Because it's an absolute grinder with the Leafs.
It is, especially the goaltender position. I mean, those guys take more heat than anybody. And from what I can tell, he just seems like a down-to-earth, solid kid, happy to be there, wants to do his best. He's going to show up. He's going to put in the work. He wants it as bad as anyone. I don't think he's ever going to be questioned for those type of things character-wise. And, if he goes on and be the goaltender for, the foreseeable future for the Toronto Maple Leafs, he's going to have ups and downs. He's going to have times where he loses his confidence. He's going to have times where the media gets on him and people are expecting more. That just goes with the territory. How he handles it is going to be, the deciding factor on whether he has success or not. And from what I can tell, he seems like he's got his head on his shoulders. He's down to earth, and he's a solid, confident kid, which is certainly what you need.
Let's keep rolling with, sorry, Mike. I was just going to follow up with some goaltending talk. Rosie mentioned Kyle Dubas. That's an interesting transition into what the Penguins could do between the pipes. Were you saying earlier this week you think there's a chance they have a whole new tandem next year?
Yeah, I think there's a chance, and that's what Frank hinted at as well, I believe, when we were on Daily Faceoff Live. And I'm not surprised by that because I think it was one of the things that led to Ron Hextall ended up getting canned there at Pittsburgh, is that he ran it back with Tristan Jarry and Casey DeSmith last year. And for me, it was really just about health factor. Like DeSmith, he's been hurt, but he's played okay when he's been there. And we'll see. We got something breaking here, though, from our insider who looks real happy up there in the corner.
Yeah, let's get to Frank Seravalli here and slide him back in. Frank, I see you waving your hand there. What do you got? Oh, you got to
help if I unmuted myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just actually asked you about, or was talking about Mackenzie Blackwood. I'm told he is staying with the San Jose Sharks after that trade. They agreed to terms, I'm told, on a 2-year deal that will come in around $2.5 million a year. So Blackwood gets a little bit of security and a fresh slate of opportunity in San Jose to rejuvenate that career that we were just talking about. So that is one domino down on the goaltending chair, the goaltending game of musical chairs.
All right. Thank you very much, Frank. Mackenzie Blackwood last season only appeared in 22 games for the New Jersey Devils, had a goals against average of 3.20, a save percentage that was under 900. But this is a guy, Mike, who, I mean, at 26 years old, like, it feels like Mackenzie Blackwood has been around the NHL for almost longer than he has been because of his age. This is a guy at 26. Like, if the injuries can get put behind him, I think there's some upside. A couple of years ago, when people were throwing together mock Team Canada rosters for the Olympics, like Mackenzie Blackwood was getting included in those. What do you make of this signing? Like, is it just injuries for him?
Well, that was 3 years ago, and I have a hard time thinking goalies bounce back. That's just reality, man. Like, when's the last time a goalie spent 2 years on the shelf, largely with not great play and a lot of injuries, and they came back and blew everybody's doors off? Like, it's rare, okay? And he's young. He could happen there. I guess I'm not surprised because San Jose would be a team where he can grow. Like, that team's not going to be any good. He should be able to get to play. But their history with goalies and resurrecting them is not good, man. Like, they've thrown spaghetti at the wall now for 3 seasons. You can go on down the list here, man, of the goalies they've had. It's been Jones and Hill and Kakkonen and Reimer and Melnichuk and Kozanosh and Dell and Blackwood now. And, like, okay, hire some people that know goalies and fix this guy, if that's what you're going to do. Like, that's what needs to happen there. So it's a belief in him. I get it for the timing of it. And I just wanted to flip back to Pittsburgh here super fast. I've said this for a while. Whoever they get as their number one, whether they bring back Jarry, which I'd be surprised with, I think a great combination in Pittsburgh, man, if they could trade for, get like a Daniel Vladar and sign a Yoenis Korpisalo. That, to me, is a tandem that would be a changer for them that would look really good and would give them a little bit of flexibility down the road and some cap flexibility as well. So I'm not surprised that they'd be going in a whole new different direction because I don't think that goaltending's been where they wanted for a couple of years, and Kyle Dubas would like to make his mark on that position if possible.
Yeah, fair enough. Our friends at Cap Friendly have an interesting little counter going here on their website. Right now, total contract years given out early in the day, we are at 8 with a total of $11.585 million committed to free agents. Very early in the day here on the Daily Faceoff Free Agent Special, brought to you by Betano. The game starts now at Betano.ca. It'll be interesting to see if anyone can really alter their Stanley Cup odds over at Betano with the moves they're making today. But I don't really know if there's a name on this list that, you know, if one team signs, I go, boom. My view of them has changed. They're contenders now. Rosie, in this top 10, is there, like, I mean, we obviously have Orlov at 1. But there's an interesting group of forwards here from Wheeler, O'Reilly, Duchesne, Tarasenko, Bunting. One of those guys that you really like in terms of a contender, maybe eyeing them up?
Yeah, like if Vladimir Tarasenko, I think he's got tons of upside. He's played, he's made his mark on a few different teams now. You look at Bunting there, I think Toronto's just kind of moved on from him. I think Bunting, I really think that he has the ability to be the guy that he's trying to be, but I just don't think he quite understands how to play that role. He's a guy that can play in the top 6, bottom 6. He can play heavy minutes. He can be responsible and reliable. He can get under other teams' skin. He's just trying to figure out what that looks like. And he seems to have been trying to do it this year with too much diving, too much looking at the refs, too much extracurricular stuff going on. I mean, the suspension he took in the playoffs was kind of mind-boggling. But you can tell it's because he's trying to fill a void. He's trying to create an identity for himself. And I just think he's been struggling with it. If he can hone that down and figure it out and nail it down, I think he could be a good addition to other teams as well. But the sky's the limit for, any of those guys in the top handful of names there where they can go and flourish on a team that's willing to, put them in a situation to thrive.
Rosie, I remember Bunting's first year. Super quick story here. His first year's in the American League, and he comes in and makes contact in the crease and just starts scrumming it up, right? This is in the American League. Yeah. And his teammate, Eric Selleck, I'd played with the year before, and he's on the ice. And I looked at him, I go, Sally, how many times are you going to have to fight this year because of this kid? Right? Like, do you ever feel that, Rosie, where you get some young hotshot in where you're like, oh, he's going to cause all these problems, and now I'm going to have to chuck knuckles because of somebody?
Yeah, so many times guys play like idiots, and then you got to go do cleanup for them. And sometimes it's all good when you're starting things and getting the ball rolling. But there's a couple times where it's like, hey, buddy, I should be the one dictating when I go. It shouldn't be you every bloody night because you're acting like a moron, and I got to go clean the table from your mess. But it's part of it, man. And honestly, especially watching now, anyone who's willing to muck it up and get in there and get dirty and chirp off, and my God, the game is lacking that. It is missing that. Anyone who wants to play that style of game, I think they're going to find themselves being quite valuable on rosters.
Our boy Frank Seravalli's up at the top there on the phone, so we'll see if maybe Frank can give us something in the next few minutes here. Not to put any pressure on you, Frank. Not to put any pressure on you. I was talking about those 5 forwards, though, that we have in the back half of the top 10, Mike. And okay, Wheeler, sure, good vet, but he's over 35. I don't know. Ryan O'Reilly, we saw what he could do in Toronto. He's not the player he used to be. The name that I'm most fascinated by that there's really not been a lot of buzz about is Vladimir Tarasenko. If you had, he's 9 on the list, but if you had to rank these guys in order of who's most likely to pop off and score 35 to 40 goals next year, Tarasenko is still that guy to me. I am really intrigued by his free agency case and just the fact we haven't heard him connected to very many teams.
Yeah, I think Tarasenko to me should be a 30-goal scorer in the NHL at this point still. And last season I think depressed a fair amount of contracts with the St. Louis Blues, except Barbashev, because he got out of Dodge and did so well with the Vegas Golden Knights and really pumped up. But Barbashev was pretty non-consequential during the regular season with St. Louis. But Tarasenko, you look at his numbers, right? He had 18 goals last year in 69 games. That's down for him. He wasn't utilized on the power play very well, or very much, I should even say, in St. Louis. He only had a couple of goals like that. So, does he slot into a team that's maybe mid-pack to play power play and play elevated again and be able to shoot the puck because that's where he's best at? That would make a lot more sense for him. But is he also chasing another cup? Right? And where's that fit? Is he a second or third line winger? He's still a second line winger in my eyes. So he is kind of a wild card. I could see him go. I could see him back with the Rangers if they wanted. I could see him with Carolina. But Carolina's going to take dumpster dive contracts. So let's say Tarasenko doesn't go the first day. Tarasenko would be a perfect guy to go to Carolina on the second day when they depress his value a little bit. I think it's interesting. 3 times 5 is what we're looking at our projection here at Daily Faceoff that we use from the analytics. And I think that's probably pretty fair. I think he'll be under 4 years and under $6 million, and it could be a steal if he scores 30 goals.
You don't got to give him a lot of term. He's not going to come in over a $6 million AAV. To me, he's my favorite free agent situation of the day just because of that high-end upside. I know last year maybe wasn't great, wasn't a perfect fit with the New York Rangers, but a couple of years ago, that guy popped home a lot of goals. And if you got him for $5 million, next year the cap goes up 7. In the third year of that deal, let's say the cap's at $95 million. Man, I mean, to have a 30-goal scorer in your lineup at that point, it should age fine as well. There are some guys on this list that I'm kind of going, buyer beware on. Like Ryan Graves is one of those guys for me. He's second in terms of D-men on the list, but committing 5 years and north of $5.1 million to him would scare me a little bit. I wonder about a team maybe going a little bit too rich in terms of term for a guy like Ryan O'Reilly as well. Is there a buyer beware out there for you, Rosie? Maybe someone who you're hearing they might get a decent payday and you're going, I don't know if that's going to age all too well.
Well, you look at like Duchesne, like why did he fall off that much? Why is he getting bought out? Is there something internal about him that isn't going good? Is his heart in it still? Why did they need to change the identity? And that means change Matt Duchesne out of Nashville. It kind of rings a little bit of alarm bells. And, you look at Ryan O'Reilly and the last few years that he's had and with some injuries, and he's not getting older or any younger or any faster. You wonder what he's got left in the tank. And, I know GMs are looking for those guys like those Tarasenkos where they're capable of X and their value right now is Y. And you got to jump on those trains where you feel like you talk that a contract is going to age well. That's such a huge thing. Sometimes guys are hotter than a pistol. They go into free agency. Everyone's clamoring over them. And I mean, there's a high percentage chance that they're not going to fulfill, their contract. And, coming off a hot year, it's dangerous to do that where a guy that's, maybe not in the best position, maybe not in the best atmosphere, you can kind of insert him into your deal and watch him flourish as a guy. And again, Tarasenko seems to be that guy to me, which I feel, in my mind, it would be him there at 6 and, maybe Duchesne there at 7 and down the road you go. But time will tell if these guys find a home and if they flourish. But again, that number 9 spot has got my eye on it for sure.
Just taking a peek at some news we got here. Jesper Fast, the Carolina Hurricanes have made that deal official. It's 2 years at a $2.4 million AAV. So with 17 players on the roster, the Canes still have about $21.3 million in projected cap space. They could do some damage if they wanted to. It'd be interesting to see what Carolina can get up to for the rest of the day here. Another team that's making news, but not in the traditional free agent frenzy sense of it, that's the Columbus Blue Jackets. Mike Babcock officially hired this morning to be the 9th head coach in franchise history, and the club just announced that Adam Fantilli is signing his 3-year entry-level contract as well. That is a team, Mike, that I am very, very interested to see kind of go through the next little bit. Like, they got this nice youth wave. They got guys like Laine and Gaudreau up front. The back end with Zach Werenski coming back. Fantilli now, maybe. Like, he's an automatic Rookie of the Year contender. Columbus will be interesting next year.
Imagine Fantilli right between Gaudreau and Laine. That's exciting to me. And Columbus is very much now giving the middle finger to everything, right? Like, they're saying, we're going to bring in Babcock. We're going to trade for Provorov. Like, here's the big old middle finger to cancel culture and everything else. We're just here to win, and you guys can deal with it. And you know what? In some ways, for that franchise, they need it. And they need a bit of juice because they need a centerman. They've needed one for a while. They may have it in-house now with Fantilli. If he can do anything like what Matty Beniers did with the Seattle Kraken in his rookie season, this is kind of your roadmap to being able to fix a team quickly rather than having to spend big money for a centerman out there in a market that frankly sucks for centermen. So it's big for them. And I think that with Columbus, the one thing that scares me, though, is Babcock and that goaltending. Elvis Merzlikins better have earplugs ready, and Tarasov better be healthy because Merzlikins had a miserable year. Honestly, I think it'd be good for him to get a fresh start anywhere outside of Columbus, given not just how last year went, but also the lingering effects of what happened with his good friend and teammate, Matty Kivleniaks, a couple of years ago, losing him. Like, yeah. There's going to be fireworks there, I think, and it makes me nervous. And I think the goaltending could be an area with Columbus that ultimately dooms them if they don't have a good relationship right off the start.
Rosie, what do you make of the Babcock to CBJ hiring?
It's apparent that they like the hard-nosed coaches, right? They've had a couple of them in there. I did not think Babcock was going to get back into the league just because of all the hype around him and personality problems and whatnot. But it's going to be very interesting to watch him work there. Has he changed his tune? Are the guys going to be scared of him? Is he going to be as hard on players as he has been in the past? Is that going to work out? And it's yet to be seen. It's a ballsy move, I think, for him to come off that Toronto contract and pick up another favorably sized one as well. And, I just I would not be pleased if I was in that organization and here they hire him. What's good about him? Yeah, he's won, decades ago, I guess, and he's had nothing but negativity surrounding him. He's got terrible stories about him personally going around. Are those overblown, or are those, just scratching the surface? I guess those guys are about to find out. But it's certainly nice when you can have a high draft pick like that, pick up a Fantilli and get a guy that doesn't cost you $7-8 million to actually make an impact at the top of the center pile there. So, lots to watch in there. It'll be interesting to watch and see how everyone reacts, everyone gets along, and if that team can start buzzing or not. It looks like they're trying to put some pieces in play for sure.
One of the many teams. Oh, go ahead, Mike.
I'm gonna swing back here to your original question as somebody who might be a bit of value on our free agent board here. And what about Connor Brown, guys? Like, sometimes it turns into a decision of, do we want to roll the dice a little bit on a younger player? Do we want to go with something that's proven? And I think if you compare like a Tarasenko to a Brown, aside from them shooting with opposite hands, you're kind of in that type of dilemma, right? We could get Brown coming out, or Tarasenko on the right side. He's older. Man, I'd be in the Brown camp 100%. But I think that's a guy whose contract, like, we have him on our daily face-off projection here at 4 times 3.3.
Mm-hmm.
Man, guys, I think he's going to be north of 4 for sure, because his numbers bear out somebody who, despite missing a lot of time, should be in that mix. And Tyler, he's been linked with the Edmonton Oilers on occasion here, buddy. So what do you think about that move, since you're the Edmonton fellow on the board here?
Yeah, I was going to say, I got the Oilers Nation content crew sitting just on the other side of the wall from me here, and they're buzzing. They're itching for something to happen here. But listen, he's one of those guys that's eligible for the 1-year bonus-laden contract, right? Mm-hmm. That's the only way it can work in Edmonton, Mike. They don't have a lot of money. Bouchard needs a bridge deal. Ryan McLeod needs a bridge deal. If Connor Brown wants to bet on himself for a season, take the 1-year deal. Maybe the Oilers throw in, kind of like the Bruins did with Patrice Bergeron, some very low-level kind of bonuses for him to just crush off in the first half of the season, get him up to $3 million. That money rolls over to next year, and then Connor Brown's a UFA in a year where the cap could go up, $5, $6, $7 million? We don't know, but it's going to be elite. If you come here to Edmonton, score yourself 25 goals and make some money, and you're a UFA in a year where the cap jumps up, it's interesting. But at the same time, it's interesting for us to sit here and talk about it. But if you have $9 or $10 million guaranteed on the board from another team, it's probably really damn hard to turn that down.
For sure. For sure it would be. It's, guys like to bet on themselves and guys believe in themselves, but you want to take that security at the end of the day. You don't know how long your career is going to be going on. McKenna, when he's talking about like injuries and guys coming back from them, like there's no guarantees in any of that. And I mean, a lot of the time guys want to take that security. And if it's on the table, more often than not, money's going to talk. But it is interesting to go, and if you can time it right and say, yeah, the cap's going up. If I have a big year here with a team like Edmonton, away she goes, right? And you can really time it well to blast off at the right time. And I'm surprised more teams and contracts don't have these bonuses like, hey, come here, you believe in yourself, you think you're worth this, then we'll lock you up, and we'll, if you play the way you're claiming you can play, then the sky's the limit. We'll hammer you with these bonuses. If you make them, great. If not, well, that's the fear of not taking the security. But I'm surprised we don't see a little bit more of that.
Yeah, and boys, we got something coming here on the goalie market. Darren Dreger's reporting Antti Raanta signed a 1-year, $1.5 million deal to stay with Carolina. I actually had that on my Matchmaker article that came out with Daily Faceoff last week. So he will stay. That will pair him with Pyotr Kochetkov. The Carolina Hurricanes now have their goaltending for, I think Kochetkov is at $2 million something. Not looking at his cap hit right now.
$2 million for 4 more years.
They have their cap hit for goaltending at $3.5 million, and they'll have Kochetkov and Antti Raanta. I like that, because I think Kochetkov's a stud there in the making, and Raanta gives a bit of security, even if he's Humpty Dumpty, man. Like, he's hurt all the time. But you know what? That's kind of a lot of the goalies these days, eh, Rosie? Like, when you're looking around, try to name me a goalie that hasn't missed time with an injury besides that's not named Connor Hellebuck or Andrei Vasilevsky.
Yeah, it's a tough position. I remember, playing with goalies and the hips and the problems they have, and, to put your body in that position that many times. And if you want to be one of those guys that works at it and practices and does the extra stuff on the ice with the goaltending coach and works after practice, I mean, those miles add up on an old body. And it seems like, I don't know if it's more than more than it used to be or not? The style of goaltending, maybe, has that changed enough to start wearing and tearing on these guys' bodies? But absolutely, it seems like it's almost impossible for a goalie to stay healthy for a number of years and not start to have these nagging injuries pile up where you don't know when and how long they're going to bite you for.
Yeah, that is fair. Looking at that Canes cap situation again, just to circle back to that. So with Raanta signed, I think it's going to knock them now down to about $17.3 million. That's with 14 forwards on the roster, both their goalies, and 5 defensemen. That Carolina team, Mike, if they wanted to, is primed to do some damage here in this offseason. I wonder, though, like, with no high-end forwards on the market and that kind of being an area of need, I wonder if they're not looking at the trade market at all.
That's what I would think. And I also wonder where this leaves them with, does it open up some space to keep Brett Pesce around? And you're kind of kicking the can down the road by taking Raanta back for a year, but Pesce's due another contract as well. He's a free agent in 2024. He's worth way more than the 4.25 that he's making as is. So yet again, a pretty shrewd move from Carolina. No surprise there.
Yeah, interesting stuff. We'll see if the Canes get up to anything this offseason. A lot of you are dropping your hot takes into the YouTube chat there on the Daily Faceoff YouTube. If you're watching along there and you haven't hit the subscribe button, go ahead, hammer that bad boy for us. We're going to be here for at least another hour on the Daily Faceoff Live Free Agent Special, brought to you by Betano. The game starts now at betano.ca. Some hot takes that are getting dropped in there. We'll share. These are just listener predictions. Toxic is in and says Max Domi to Toronto. I mean, that would be interesting. Maybe they want to add some bite, but I would argue, Jay, with the Reaves signing potentially going down, they're maybe looking for a more skill piece. Would that not make more sense?
Yeah, I mean, that's the argument on Twitter this morning when talking about the Reaves. Do you add a guy like him to add the toughness, or do you want to go, like a toughness as far as like Sam Bennett toughness, like some top 6 forward toughness? And to me, I don't think you can get enough of it as far as adding to the top 6. If like the most successful and likable and powerful guys, especially in the playoffs, are those guys that play with an edge that can take over a series, wear teams down. When you're playing that way, you're in the game, you're invested. And when a guy like I keep saying Sam Bennett, as we just faced him in the playoffs, to just get your whole game on the wheels like that, and all of a sudden the goals start coming in, the plays start being made, you're just a freight train on rails just running through teams. And I think having a guy that plays physical, can breed that, where, a lot of we've got some very high-end offensive talents on the Toronto Maple Leafs roster. And, if they aren't doing that high-end offensive things day to day, they're not really doing too much else, and they don't really have a way to get themselves back on track. And a guy that can play physical, skate his balls off, forecheck hit, get in goalie's faces, just be a monster out there is exactly what, let's be honest, every team's looking for. But if you can add it on the top 6, I think you're really doing well.
I had to make you tingle a little bit though when he signed Revo, eh?
Yeah, it was pretty interesting, man. I mean, Revo, like, you just got to applaud the guy for staying in the league for so long. I mean, the last 10 years, so many guys have dropped off of that league that play his role. And, he's ended up being, probably one of the premier heavyweights in the league. And he sure plays like it. He acts like it. He's high confidence guy out there. He can handle himself with absolutely anyone in the league, no question. And, he goes out there and still gets it done. He stayed in the league. He can keep up. He can make the plays. He's responsible. He's certainly interesting. I can't wait to watch him go. But what I really want to see is like his aura, transfer over to the rest of the team. I want everyone else to play a little bigger. I want everyone else to play a little taller. I want everyone to have a little confidence out there now that Revo's on the roster.
Rosie, going to cut you off a little bit here. Frank Seravalli threw this out on Twitter a minute ago. Let's bring in our NHL insider. Frank, what do you got for us? Frank, unmute your mic if you have a sec. Sorry, buddy.
Yeah, maybe we should work on that. The Montreal Canadiens are finishing off a deal with the Washington Capitals that will send Joel Edmondson to Washington in exchange for 2 draft picks. So working on the exact picks, but interesting little trade as we hit 12 noon on the dot and everyone's focused on free agency, that there is a lot happening out there.
A lot happening. So Joel Edmondson and his $3.5 million cap hit on the move to the Washington Capitals. Is that setting anything up for Montreal, or just them moving a contract and a D-man off the books?
It's a 3rd and 7th round pick, by the way.
Okay.
I don't have a full. Hold on a sec. Just going to see if I can get this out there.
I love that. I love it. Frank's doing this live on the air, getting things out
so
there.
Just tweeted that out, and I think this was just. I don't think the Canadians are setting anything up. I think Edmondson had been out there for a bit. They wanted to try and move the contract if they could. They also think he's a pretty valuable piece for a team that's trying to get in the playoffs, and for a Caps team that had a lot of influx, especially on the blue line last year, could also use a little depth.
Yeah, Caps could use a bit of a fresh look. Appreciate the quick little trade break from you there, Frank, and the full details up. Again, 3rd and a 7th going to the Habs. Joel Edmondson going to the Washington Capitals. So we will keep our eyes on the trade market as well. Another big name, Mike, that's out there is Alex DeBrincat. I was stunned we didn't see him get moved on day 1 of the NHL draft. I wonder if they finally find a new home for DeBrincat out of Ottawa.
Well, they're going to have to, or else Pierre Dorian's going to have to eat that contract, and also what he gave up as 7th overall pick isn't going to look great if they can't get a good return on it. Real quick, that is not going to be popular in the Montreal locker room. They love that guy. Yeah. Thankfully, they do still have veterans there, but that's a little bit surprising because I know he was a big part of it there. So they are moving on. With DeBrincat, though, guys, all roads to me still point to Detroit with him. They got the cap space to do it. They need the scoring. And Frank, go right ahead. You got something?
Yeah. Luke Schenn, Jay Rosedale's buddy, is going to the Nashville Predators. It's a 3-year deal, $2.75 million AAV. So Luke Schenn triples his money on the market. Really big deal for him. And he also gets reunited with some close buddies in Tyson Barrie and Ryan McDonough in Smashville. So big culture shift for the Preds under Barry Trotz. They're trying to do it the right way, bring in good people. Luke Schenn on his way to the Preds.
3 years, wow. $2.75 million AAV. Thanks, Frank. Rosie, we'll let you get the first word on this one. What do you think of your boy Luke Schenn going to Nashville?
Good for the human eraser, man. Jeez, I just remember so well, 4 years ago or so when things weren't going well, he thought his days playing hockey were numbered. And he really bet on himself is what he did. He goes, hires Adam Oates and gets some people outside of the hockey world and pays those people to help him with every part of his game, conditioning, mental side of it. And he's reinvented himself into a premier player that commands this kind of money. Good for him, man. 3 years in Nashville. What a great place to play, too. As you mentioned, he's got some familiar faces around there. I imagine he's just elated and maybe thinking about having to pack up again. And he's been on the move a lot in the last few years, but good for him for getting paid. I understand now why they couldn't get it done in Toronto when he's got those types of offers getting thrown at him. It's a no-brainer for him.
I'll tell you what, man, he's approaching my jersey collection, though, now, because you're looking at Leafs, Flyers, Kings, Coyotes, Ducks, Canucks, Lightning. Dude, he's at 8 now. This is going to be 8 with him in Nashville, dude. I'm at 9, and I only played for 7 of those. He's got Rosie's coming for me, but I like. Listen, I don't like that it's 3 years. I love it for the player, but I think that if you're Trotz, you're absolutely trying to lock down the culture there and what you want, and have players that are going to defend well, and also be able to move the puck a bit, right? Like Schenn put up his highest point totals in the last decade last season. So like you said, working with Adam Oates has paid off for him.
Yeah, he's a big body out there. He's got 2 knee braces on. He always talks about, why do I look like the Pillsbury Doughboy out there? But that guy is as in shape as anyone you can find. He works incessantly in the gym, whether it's workout, pre-skate, pre-practice, post-practice. He's in the gym constantly. He takes care of his health. He's just a consummate professional. And as you say, they're changing the culture around there. You got to talk about what he brings, to the younger guys and the up and comers in the locker room on how to be a pro, what it takes, what kind of time are you putting in. And when a guy like Luke Schenn, who's played as many years as he has and is getting to the age that he is, when you see the kind of hours and time and effort that he puts into his craft, that's going to trickle down and show up on the younger guys' radar too, and they're going to be forced to get in the gym and learn how it's done. And that's only going to, positively benefit your entire organization, having a guy like there doing those kinds of things.
And also a good chance for maybe you to take a trip down to Nashville next season, Rosie. I'm sure you're not mad about that.
I'm just thinking about that. We're actually headed there, I think, in November, October. So I'm like, oh boy, Schenner's going to be wheeling us around now.
I'm going to be there in late. I'll be there in late July, I guess. So maybe he'll be getting there for some training. But it's funny. Everybody seems to have a road to Nashville at some point now during the year. We all end up there.
Friggin' awesome, man! What a wicked town, wicked state, wicked everything.
Dude, it's grown up so much, dude. When I got this big old mustard thing, 2002, it wasn't anywhere near what it is now, and they're lucky that franchise really grew up with the city, man, because it's easily a top. Rosie, you say what? Top 5, top 10 place in the NHL?
Yeah, 100%, man. I mean, everything about it is good. Weather's good, people are good, barn is good. Taxes good, barbecue's good, lifestyle's good, travel's good, everything's unbelievable being there, and it's a spot that people want to go, obviously, and they're building her up again, so we'll see if they can make a run.
Second hour of our Daily Faceoff Live free agent special. The YouTube chat is absolutely buzzing right now. A3R says OEL to Florida is a good pickup. A lot of people do good. Says 2.7 mil for 3 years. That is unreal. Yeah, I will say unreal for Luke Schenn to get a payday like that on the opening day of free agency. The Players Room with former NHLers Jay Rosehill and Mike McKenna. Gentlemen, I'm going to push you guys off to the side for a quick second and bring in our instant analysis and the trade and signing grader, Matt Larkin. Nick Alberga here as well. Nick, I'll give you the first word on the Luke Schenn signing here. $2.75 million for 3 years. That you see that and you go, oh, that's why the Leafs couldn't bring him back. That's a good ticket.
And on top, it's a fantastic ticket. And on top of that, it is tax-free in Tennessee. As you know, we were just down there this past week for the NHL draft, all three of us. So good on Schenner, man. I think you can see really, really quickly why it wasn't going to work out in Toronto. I love the fit in Toronto. Unfortunately, he moves on. But, to Rosie's point, I mean, it couldn't have happened to a better guy who is like the epitome of determination, right? Just sticking with it. And who's, to think 5 years ago, Luke Schenn thought he was finished. Now he's got 2 Stanley Cups and a fat new contract. So I like the fit in Nashville. Like I know there's been some skepticism, I guess we'll say, when it comes to Barry Trotz taking over for David Poile, and he trade Johansson, Matt Duchene gets bought out, but it's quite clear and definitive to me, Larks, that what they're trying to do in Nashville, and that's a bit of a culture change, right?
Yeah, Matt. Sorry, just quickly, I think everyone agrees it's an A+ deal for Schenn, but what grade do you give this from a Preds perspective?
Well, I'm gonna temper things down a little bit here, okay? As the French say, comme ci, comme ça. It's a C+. The Nashville Predators are buying high on Luke Schenn, someone who you have to hand it to him, the way he's puffed his value back up the last couple of years, 2 Stanley Cup rings with the Tampa Bay Lightning. And he actually was the Toronto Maple Leafs' best defenseman in the playoffs. 5-on-5, 10-2 was the score with Luke Schenn on the ice. So he brought the intangibles. He was really effective as a defenseman. That said, 3 years. This is a guy who plays a physical game. His body will be in decline over the course of that contract. And you look at what Nashville's done, collecting all those picks. They're moving out so many of their veterans. They're a team in transition. They are a rebuilding team. And yes, I get the idea of wanting to have someone to mentor your pups in Luke Schenn, but the 3-year term for what will be a declining asset, I'm not sure I love the fit. Great guy, great player, great right now, but it's a buy high. So it's a C+.
Yeah, I would echo off that. I'll jump in here as well because I didn't give my grade. I'm with you. Like I was talking more from the Schenn front, but certainly from Nashville, I was talking about that skepticism. I'm probably looking at about a C+ here. I just right now, and again, it's early on in this tenure, guys. I don't know what Barry Trotz is looking to do. Like he was linked to Evgeny Kuznetsov earlier today. And I think it's just tough for a team like Nashville because I'm not sure they're that type of organization that can go on a full rebuild. Have we ever seen it since the early days of this franchise?
Nick, I'm going to jump in, cut you off a little bit. Frank is going to hop in here. Frank, you got some news for us? Unmute yourself, Frank. Sorry.
It's not me, guys. Promise you. Just a whole slate of things happening here. The Toronto Maple Leafs deal with Ryan Reaves. They've agreed to terms 3 times 1.35 is the AAV. I told you that was a little bit in flux. Yeah. The Edmonton Oilers, there's a report out there that they've signed Connor Brown coming off of that ACL repair. I'm told that's not accurate, at least not yet. One small bit of Edmonton Oilers news, and that is that they have signed Lane Peterson to a 2-year, $775,000 deal. It is a one-way contract for Lane Peterson. So the Oilers grinding away, but nothing done with Connor Brown. I'm told the interest there has been significant. And if he is coming to the Edmonton Oilers, he will be leaving money on the table somewhere else.
Certainly one of those situations we're going to keep a close eye on here. Thank you, Frank. We'll be keeping tabs on a few other things here throughout the day. Now that we know the term on the Ryan Reaves deal, Matt, what kind of grade are you giving that?
I'm giving it a C, and I think Ryan Reaves is going to be entertainment incarnate. I love, as a reporter, the fact that he's going to be here. He's just going to bring soundbite after soundbite. And yes, he is going to bring the type of culture that Brad Treliving is trying to build. Of course, he's tough as nails, probably the most feared player in the league. And those who support the signing, they're going to keep tweeting at that video of Austin Matthews getting ragdolled by one of the halves behind the net, right? That famous video we saw. But the problem is, when your heavy is playing in the bottom of the lineup, that's not going to help you when you're in the deep waters of the playoffs. Ryan Reaves played 8 minutes and 32 seconds a game for the Minnesota Wild in the playoffs. So I'm critical of that element of it. You are toughening up your team, but what the Leafs need is skill that plays higher in the lineup. Look who destroyed them in the playoffs, the Sam Bennett, Matthew Tkachuk line. That is heavy skill. Guys who bring the hard-hitting game but actually play high in the lineup, play a lot of minutes. Ryan Reaves is not going to play a lot of minutes for the Toronto Maple Leafs. The same reason the Wayne Simmons experiment didn't work out is why I'm skeptical about this one. Love the person, but it's a C for me.
Yeah, I'm with you on that front too. I just, the age is what I can't get past, Larks. Like, he's 36, which tells me he's going to be 39 at the end of this 3-year deal. And he's pretty much one-dimensional in the league that has no more fighting. Like, I do think he has more skill than people lead on, but I mentioned this. It's worth the flyer for me at the allotted price because of what he can do for that room in terms of character and chemistry. And everywhere he's played, people have been, giving raving reviews about a guy like Ryan Reaves. Excuse me, I almost said O'Reilly, which sounds like he's headed to Nashville as well. But that's the big thing here is I think the character that a guy like Ryan Reaves can bring to that locker room. They direly needed it.
Frank, we got you hopping in here. What do you got?
Yeah, James Van Riemsdyk is heading to the Boston Bruins. Sources say he's agreed to a 1-year, $1 million deal. So pretty nice value there for the Bees as they try and get their salary cap situation under control. They have a few other things percolating in Boston. I'm told Kevin Shattenkirk is also on their radar as well. Also another vet that is potentially inexpensive. So Bruins hard at work with a lot of different things, and lots of speculation and reporting out there, I believe, to be accurate. Ryan O'Reilly heading to the Nashville Predators. So Preds have been busy. Barry Trott's getting some work done.
Yeah, Barry Trott's very, very busy. And just, Frank, quickly on the JVR thing, he's only 34, right? So no bonus if anyone has that question. That's straight up 1 year, $1 million?
Correct.
Okay, thank you very much, Frank. We will send you back up to your insider cam. Before we get back to the main panel, gents, Larkin, Alberga, we have a couple of moves right there to grade out. Ryan O'Reilly, 4x4.5, going to the Nashville Predators. So Barry Trott's not afraid to spend right now. Nick, what's your reaction to that news?
I give it a B+. I like it quite a bit, and maybe I'm a bigger Ryan O'Reilly fan than some people out there, and I like the fit in Toronto. I think it's unfortunate it couldn't work out. And again, it's the intangibles. It's the work ethic. Like, I think if people do recall the first round against Tampa, specifically where the Leafs win their first playoff series in 19 years, Ryan O'Reilly, his DNA was all over pretty much every big and crucial goal in that series. Wins a Conn Smythe a couple years back with the St. Louis Blues. At that price tag, I think it is worth it for a team like the Nashville Predators, especially when you lose your top 2 centers or top 6 centers in the form of Johansson and Matt Duchene. So I actually like the fit quite a bit.
Yeah, for me, Tyler, I swear, guys, I'm going to have some good grades coming. I'm not the toughest teacher in the school, but it's a C for me. It's very confusing behavior by the Nashville Predators. You're in a rebuild. You get all those picks for Tanner Jeannot. You're announcing yourself as this team that's finally going to allow itself to bottom out. You get out from under Matt Duchene and Ryan Johansson's contract, and you're giving out 4 years to Ryan O'Reilly, a declining asset, a player who's had a hard time staying healthy, who's shown visible signs of declining from his peak Selke Trophy winning form of 2019. It doesn't make sense to me. It's very contradictory behavior. I think the term, the AAV is reasonable. I still think Ryan O'Reilly does a lot of things well. He's got a great stick. He's great at intercepting passes. He's a great back checker. He's such a smart player, but that's a guy who should be going to a contender, not this weird, murky middle team that doesn't seem to know what it is right now. So I'm disappointed in you, Barry Trotz.
It's 4.5 mil, right?
Yeah, 4.5. It's not. I'm probably somewhere in between you guys, but you're right. This Nashville organization is in such a weird kind of murky middle right now. I don't think you guys need to slap a grade on the Lane Peterson signing to the Edmonton Oilers, but I'll go ahead and say that's a nice little pickup for the Oilers because they are right up against the cap. Basically, they can only sign guys for like $775K. And like Frank said, keeping an eye on the Connor Brown situation as well. Nick Alberga, Matt Larkin, we will let you guys go here for a little bit until we got some big moves to throw more grades on. We'll bring back the Players Room with Mike McKenna and Jay Rosehill on the Daily Faceoff Live free agent special. Yeah, we got over 3,000 people watching over on that Daily Faceoff YouTube. If you're watching there, hit that subscribe button for us. If you missed it earlier in the week, Frank said I can't officially start my vacation till we hit 7,000 subs. So do me a solid. I'm watching it very closely. Boys, what do we think? Jay, Ryan O'Reilly to the Nashville Predators. Do the Preds want to contend? Do they want to rebuild? I mean, they're moving off pieces, but then just bringing in more vets. I'm a little puzzled by this.
I know. It looked like they're kind of unloading some things, doing a bit of a rebuild and getting back to center and using those draft picks to maybe figure things out. And then they're just chucking some pretty high-end money to some people. I think obviously reasons those guys signed is because that's the most they're going to get anywhere in the league by far. But, the 4 years on O'Reilly time will tell. But like Matt Larkin said, he is a depreciating asset. He's not necessarily getting any faster. They're not getting any younger. Yeah. But 4 times 4.5, is that a lot? I mean, like we say, the cap should go up. That should become less of an issue down the road here. But in 4 years, is he going to be worth $4.5 million? I don't know. He might be one of those things where you look back and say, wow, that term was a little bit too long. It's hard to say, but it is a bit of a head scratcher. What are they doing in Nashville? They're kind of rebuilding while loading up on some kind of obscure guys that you wouldn't really expect them to go for, but here we are. They're making a move nonetheless, and they're pulling triggers. So good for those guys for getting those tickets signed.
Oh, give me this one all day. I got a totally different view than Larks and you here, Rose. I love this deal for the Predators. Yeah. Here's my reasoning for it. I think the Preds really believe in Thomas Novak. Tommy Novechkin. All right, they called him that in Milwaukee. Like, this guy took a while to get there, but he comes in last year, and it's his first real season, and he had to break the door down to play top minutes with them. 43 points, 51 games, 17 tucks. Like, he was a point a game in the American League. I think between him and also the rise in Cody Glass as a centerman, who they also look at as now starting to scratch the surface of being a 6th overall pick and maybe being able to play higher, you're going to look at Novak, O'Reilly, and Glass as your top 3 centermen with room to grow for 2 of them and a guarantee in Ryan O'Reilly. And a guy that's going to kill penalties for you and play the hard minutes and take the draws in your defensive zone when you need that to let these other guys grow into roles. So I think you're buying a bit of time for the other guys, and you're getting a sure bet with O'Reilly. Is his foot speed a problem? I don't think it is when you put him with the right people, and Nashville does have players that can skate. They're going to be better next year with Andrew Burnett coaching. They still have UC Saros in net. They still have Roman Josi, and they got Philip Forsberg getting healthy. I think that Nashville can still knock on the door of the playoffs. Will they make it? I don't know. But I don't think Trotz came in to totally burn this thing down, especially when he hired Brunette. Bringing Brunette in to me said, hey, I'm going to give you guys I'm going to give you the horses to try to at least get us there. It's up to you to get us in the Stanley Cup playoffs. We're going to have to deal with this cap crunch for a bit, but we're not out of this. Now, the Schenn deal I think is a little long for me. But this one here with O'Reilly, that 4th year at 4.5, he's worth more than 4.5, I think, to somebody in this league. But going to Nashville and an extra 4th year, that's a guarantee. You know why? Because he just bought Matt Duchene's guitars that he left in Nashville. O'Reilly plays guitar too, guys. I guarantee it was part of this deal.
They absolutely needed a musician in the locker room. They could not have it without it. Yeah. Let's talk about a move that's happening out in Boston. Frank Seravalli broke that news. JVR going to the Bruins, 1 year, $1 million. And listen, 24 goals a couple of years ago. This past season, he scored 12, only played in 61 games. For $1 million, this is a fantastic pickup for the Boston Bruins. This is a guy who you can comfortably slot into your middle six, whether it's second line, third line, whatever. He's going to come in and get you 15 to 20 goals next season. At 1 million, no brainer. Can't believe JVR didn't have a bigger market. Or, I mean, hey, maybe he sat there and was like, no, I want to go to a winner. I'll take 1 million just to get on a contending team. But Rosie, you obviously know him a little bit from his time in Toronto as well. What do you make of this pickup for the Bruins?
Yeah, I'm surprised. I mean, you look at, he's considerably less paid than Ryan Reaves is, and you think of JVR, you think of a pretty high-end talent, a guy that's going to be an addition to any roster. I kind of chased him around actually from, Philadelphia and Toronto, never actually played with him, but everyone that I talked to just loves the guy. Like, he's very well liked in the locker room. He's a great team guy. I don't think I've ever heard a negative thing said about him. And to put him on that Boston Bruins roster for $1 million, it seems like how did they do that? And I think you hit the nail on the head. It's got to be something to do with him saying, hey, I want to go to a potential winner. I want to go to somewhere where I can maybe hoist a cup in my twilight years in the NHL here. It's something that he hasn't done before. And I think that he's taken a bit of a pay cut and not even choosing to, check out the market as hard as he possibly can in order to maximize his value. But he's made a lot of money, and I think he wants to win a Stanley Cup. And what a pickup for Boston. I'm actually really surprised by it.
It's a net front presence, man, and $1 million. Take that, right?
Big time.
Like
$1 million.
Can he move? Not great, but when you need somebody to play in front of the net, take it, man. He'll fit right in under Monty.
Yeah, I think that's a nice little piece of business for them. Again, like they're so tight up against the cap here. When you look at the pieces they still need to add, like we were joking, Carolina's got $17 million, but they have like almost a full roster ready to go. They need like a couple of fringe D-men potentially. They could go make a big splash and upgrade. You look at Boston, you go, okay, like they got $12.6 million here, I guess, and that's with JVR signed. Okay, but that's only 6 D-men. You need to get Jeremy Swayman done or figure out what you're doing with that goalie position. And that's only 7 forwards signed as well. Who knows what's happening with Bergeron? Who knows what's going to happen with David Krejci as well? They need to fill a lot of lineup spots with only $12 million, bringing in a guy like JVR, who again can just be reliable for you next season for just $1 million. There's no downside there. Like, what, even if he only scores you 10 goals next year and is in and out of the lineup as a healthy scratch, $1 million, who cares?
Such a good pickup, man. I mean, I don't know why his production's kind of fallen off a little bit there, but there's still the ability to play really good hockey. And like you say, middle six, he can fill different roles. It's just going to be interesting to see, what Boston does. I think they're going to have to rely on some guys coming out of training camp, making the team, some guys with, under $1 million. They're going to have to be on the roster. They're going to have to fill their holes with some low end money, like you say, up against the cap. But I mean, I think that, for what they always were up until the playoffs, I mean, one of the best teams in regular season history, and so deep, so nasty, goaltending, everything just dominant. I mean, to fall off the map the way they did, getting beat in the first round by that buzzsaw, the Florida Panthers, they're trying to rectify that. And I think by getting a guy like JVR on your roster for $1 million is nothing but a good thing. I don't even care who you are, what you're looking at cap-wise, everything else. That's a great pickup.
They've already traded their first, second, and third round picks for next season. So like, I was thinking, maybe Boston will get involved in the trade market a little bit and try to bring someone in that way for help. That way you're not overpaying in free agency, but you just look at almost the lack of assets they have moving forward. And I'm not sure what they're going to do. Talking about the goalie market a little bit, could be some rumblings happening there. Korpisalo, Anderson, and Tristan Jarry. Tristan Jarry is number 1 in terms of goalies on our list. As you can see at the bottom of your screen, Korpisalo and Anderson both firmly in there. Mike, with the Carolina Hurricanes, with Kochetkov and Raanta, do you think they're looking for a third piece there, or do you think they could be confident enough with just those 2 that they already have signed?
No, I think they're good, and I would roll with that as well.
Yeah.
They're going to need somebody, though, probably in the American League to make sure they've got an insurance policy on Raanta, but we do have something new here coming through.
Yes, we do.
Looks like Semyon Varlamov is going to be going back to the New York Islanders on a 2-year deal. He loves it there. He's a great goaltender in tandem, of course, with Ilya Sorokin, and there was a lot of interest in Varlamov. I'm curious to see what this comes through at a cap hit, because it's not going to be terribly cheap, and that's a team that doesn't have a lot of space to work with. I wonder how that affects the defense market. Can they bring Scott Mayfield back? That's one I'd really like to see if they're getting Varlamov, because you know he's not going to be under $2 million. He's going to be probably 3, something close to that. Sorokin and Varlamov remain in the Islanders system.
And we have some breaking news from the official New York Rangers Twitter account as well. The Rangers just sending out a graphic saying wheels up to New York, welcoming Blake Wheeler to their organization. So we'll see if we end up getting terms or something on that. But Blake Wheeler going to the Rangers, giving them a veteran top 9 winger as well. My best guess would be similar to the JVR deal. And I guess my thoughts on it would almost be similar to the JVR deal. Either of you guys disagree with that?
I don't think so. He's got that veteran presence, that leadership capabilities. You know, if you got guys coming up and you want the culture to be a certain way, and if you aren't happy with the way the playoffs went and blah, 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 you add guys like that who are, you know, in their twilight years, a little bit older, but can produce X, Y for you. These are your expectations, but where the value really sits, I think, is in, you know, locker room presence, leadership value, ability to, you know, fill out that roster in the locker room in a positive way for a low amount of money is kind of a no-brainer for a lot of teams.
I'm looking at Wheeler here strictly from the on-ice perspective, and I think that what this does for the Rangers is, remember we talked about the right side earlier, right? They tried Tarasenko, they tried Kane, they're going to get another older player here. Still had 55 points last year, not as many goals, probably needs to shoot the puck more if you ask me. But again, I think it gives room here to let Capo move up the lineup if they need to. That's what I would think. If he plays well enough to put Wheeler down at the third line, who cares?
Okay, here we go. Let's get to let's bring in Frank Seravalli here. Frank, what's up?
Yeah, so some terms on Blake Wheeler. It's a fantastic deal for the Rangers, a guy that really quietly, if you look at Blake Wheeler's numbers, he's averaged 71 points over an 82-game season for each of the last 4 years. And guess what? He's coming in south of $1 million. Blake Wheeler, 1-year deal, $800,000 base salary with the potential to earn an additional $300,000 in performance bonuses for a max total of 1.1. So the Rangers are pretty happy. They get a versatile option that can play up and down their lineup. And guy who's a vet, former captain, knows Jacob Trouba really well from Winnipeg. Like, it just, the dots kind of connect for Blake Wheeler. And, you know, I also like that he just no longer has to be the guy that he was in Winnipeg. So he can sort of blend in and just show up and play. And when he's healthy and when he's driven, he's a pretty impactful power forward to have in your lineup.
He's gonna be playing. He's gonna be playing for free. Like, what's the escrow at right now? Getting taxed in New York, trying to have an apartment in New York, $800,000. Holy shit! He's not gonna have any summer funds. He's gonna be dipping into the savings after that one's gonna go.
Bro, he got bought out. He's getting buyout money still.
Well, and dude, they get the sickest buffet on the road, and you know that too.
Yeah.
So like, there's some things that make it look good.
Rosie, his career earnings are 74 schmil.
Okay.
I think Blake Wheeler and family are doing just fine. They're not going to be in the soup kitchen line in New York.
Well, no, and I'm not saying they are, but I mean, you know, you got your money spread out in your places and everything else. You got your little checking account. $800,000 is going to be a big shock to the system when he's playing and living in New York. My God, he's going to be dipping into that $70 million just to keep the wheels on the family. I bet, man, that is not a lot of money for a guy like him. That's low.
Yeah, but I mean, he wants to go to a contender, right? And like I said, the buyout money and all of that, and flat cap world too. Like, some of these guys with those, basically every contending team, with the exception like Carolina being that close to the top, Frank, like these free agents like Wheeler and like JVR, their choice is basically, do I want to chase another $800,000 somewhere, or do I just take the 1-year short money deal?
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, and I think he's looking at who he's going to play with too, man. Like, look who he's going to line up with. You got either Zibanejad, Chorocek, maybe Hedl. Like, I think it looks pretty good for Wheeler. Like, I don't know if he's looking to extend his career with this deal or just try to win, whatever it may be. It's a wash on money, and he's going to get that from Winnipeg anyway on this last deal. So
yeah,
I don't know.
So
I think it's a good play on that right side to fill in.
Yep, me
I like
too.
I like the weight of the world isn't on his shoulders anymore. You know, you got so much expectations in a Canadian market, the captain of the team, and I mean, realistically, his point production, as Frank pointed out, is pretty solid. And again, that's why I say to not be able to get 1.2 or as if it matters. I understand that, but $800,000 Blake Wheeler just doesn't really sound that good together. It just sounds like, what the hell, what happened to this guy? But again, if he wants to win, he wants to do that deal where maybe he has a big year, maybe they win something solid, and all of a sudden his value's back up and he can do it again next year with a little more jam behind his name. But that just seems like a bargain, no question.
One quick thing on Wheeler, the buyout money is $275 this year that he's putting in his pocket. So $275 plus $800K plus another $300K, and then add in another $275 coming the following year. Blake Wheeler, the chance to double dip, go to a place you want to play where you feel like you have an authentic chance to win, which I think they certainly do in New York.
And it looks like the terms might be coming down on the Jonathan Quick deal.
Yeah, it's $825,000, and I believe it can get up to $1 million in bonuses total. So another $175 in bonuses. Yeah. The Rangers tried all sorts of different things. I think they wanted the first and foremost to bring Yaroslav Halak back. Sounds like the market was better for him out there than $1 million. And Quick, of course, his hometown team, or home state team, I should say. That's the team he grew up rooting for, the Rangers. It's always nice to go home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Full
That'll be an
circle.
interesting story. You talked a little bit about Jonathan Quick there. Mike, what do you make of that Jonathan Quick signing up in New York?
I think it's going to cost him wins. I don't have any other way to say this. The only reason he didn't get waived last year is because he was a foundational icon with the Kings, and he's Jonathan Quick, and you can't waive him. So they had to do that with Cal Peterson. Mm-hmm. And I'm a massive Jonathan Quick fan, man. I think he's the greatest American goaltender of all time. And I think in his span from about 2012 to 2016, he was untouchable. Mm-hmm. But he's never changed or upgraded his game in the last, ever since 2012. And it's blown past him. Mm-hmm. He could have played for the Vegas Golden Knights if he'd been the best option there. And it was Adin Hill ahead of him. And so I'm just nervous about this because honestly, I didn't think Halak in the first half of the year was good enough for the Rangers. I thought that they would have been smart to go out and spend a little bit more, or at least get a goalie like Laurent Brossoit who fits more within the system that their goalie coach prefers, in Benny Allaire. So, I mean, this is kind of like, it feels like they're just making his dreams come true with Quick because he can go to them and say, hey, I want to play for you guys. I'll play for anything. Which, it's great. It's a cheap goalie. And maybe he embraces the backup role, but there's going to be nights where 6 goals go in. And then there's going to be nights where he has a shutout where he's feeling it. And then at the end of the year, he's going to have an 887, and they're going to go, wow, we lost 5 more games than we should have. Well, how'd that happen? Why didn't we play well enough in front of him? So this is just reality, guys, from a goalie's perspective. And I hate that because, I don't know, I can't ever fault somebody to want to get a contract and keep playing, right, Rosie? You can. If somebody's going to give you a contract, you play as long as you can, man. 100%.
100%. I was going to ask you why do you think that drop off happens? Is it a motivational thing? You know, you become this, like you say, this legend in LA. You're winning cups. You're the man. You're kind of untouchable in certain ways. Is the motivation not there to get out there and to reinvent your game and to work on this? And what are the new goaltenders doing? And I need to try to bring this into my style of play. And it's just like that constant grind. Does some guys just not have it and they just kind of let it go by the wayside? And, I've made enough money. My dreams have come true. I've won cups. I'm this guy here. I don't need to keep up, or is it something else?
There's either two things. Either the goaltender won't change or can't change. It's either or. And some can't. Some can only play one way. Some are absolutely not willing to listen to a goalie coach at all. And I mean, I heard that Quick didn't give Sean Burke a whole lot of time of the day in Vegas. So I don't know what to expect there. And I've seen it though. John Gibson's somebody who falls in that same category for me, where there's this belief that they can suddenly just flip a switch and be great again. And goaltending has evolved so much even in 3 to 4 years that I don't believe that. So that's somebody to keep an eye on there if he does end up getting moved, because Gibson's somebody that GM still love the guy. So I'd be curious to see what happens with a new team there.
Have you had goalie coaches, like I'm thinking about, we're talking about Jonathan Quick, how the game has kind of evolved and passed him by almost, but the guy to get him back into it is Sean Burke, who literally played with like brown pads the size of Road Warriors. Is it hard to listen to a guy? It's like, you don't know this style of play. You didn't even play butterfly. Like Sean Burke, I played with him. He's an amazing individual. I love it. But do you not have to, like, even a Francois Allaire in Toronto, like, it's like, at least that guy was on the cutting edge of like the butterfly, for example, as far as like almost inventing it with Patrick Waugh, and you can understand what he has to say. But for a Jonathan Quick, who's already declining, who's not willing to keep up maybe with the Joneses and the styles of play, how is a Sean Burke who played in the 80s going to be able to, be the guy that he needs to listen to reinvent his career? Do you ever have problems with the goalie coaches and when they played and how they can relate to the game these days?
And not like a guy like Berkey's pretty modern. He played up until the 2000s when you were with him too. Ended up playing butterfly at the end, and he's actually credited for Mike Smith and Deba Dubnyk resurrecting careers, playing deep in the goal and all stuff. So I think it was more so that Quick showed up in Vegas so late in the year. It's like, man, this is me. I'm not changing. Whatever, dude. I think you get that a lot. And there's goalie coaches that'll say, well, we got him. That's who he is. We can't change him. So, I mean, I just don't know why you wouldn't want to adapt and move along. Like LA can't. LA, they fired their development goalie coach and they bumped Bill Ranford, who was their goalie coach, up to director of goaltending, and now they have a whole new staff there. So they lost both their goalies from last year, and all their goalie coaches didn't come back. So LA's looking for a fresh start in goal in a lot of ways. Copley's the only carryover, and he was new to the organization at the start of last season in the American League.
Let's take a peek here. We're heading into the final stretch of our daily Faceoff Live free agent special. Let's give everyone a quick update on what we've seen so far in terms of signings. Overnight, Klim Kostin and the Detroit Red Wings agreed to a 2-year deal with a $2 million AAV. Detroit bought out Kyler Yamamoto for the Oilers. In return, they got the rights to Kostin, and they get a deal done with him. Eric Brandstrom's got a 1-year, $2 million deal returning back to Ottawa. Jacob Bernard-Docker got a 2-year extension. He was an RFA with the Sens. Oliver Ekman-Larsson was our first real significant piece of news today. He's going to the Florida Panthers, 1 year, $2.25 million for OEL, which now looking at what guys like Wheeler and JVR got, you almost go, oh, did they give up a bit too much money to a guy like OEL? Jesper Fast is going back to the Carolina Hurricanes, 2 years, $4.8 million. Antti Raanta is back with the Canes as well, 1 year, $1.5 million. Matt Nieto, fourth line kind of option for the Penguins. That's a 2-year deal at $900K per season. Luke Schenn secured the bag with a 3-year deal that averages $2.75 million per year, $8.25 million total for Luke Schenn. Ryan Reaves got a 3-year deal with the Leafs. That cap hit expected to come in at 1.3. Jarrett Anderson Dolan, after not getting qualified by the LA Kings, he's back with them as well. JVR heads over to the Boston Bruins, 1 year, $1 million, and Blake Wheeler and Jonathan Quick both getting right around $800,000 on 1-year deals to the Rangers. The biggest one of the day is probably the Ryan O'Reilly deal in Nashville, though. 4 years worth a total of $18 million. Nothing crazy happening so far, I guess, outside of that Ryan O'Reilly one, and we had a couple of comments saying that it's been actually a pretty slow trickle today in terms of news. I was expecting to wake up this morning at 7 a.m. Mountain Time, Mike McKenna, and already have like 5 or 6 signings kind of get done. Are you surprised it's been kind of this slow?
Maybe we're just getting blown up because Twitter's a mess right now. Yeah. Is that all it is? It's slowing down the feed and information coming through. Because usually like when free agency kicks off, it's bang, 20 deals immediately. Mm-hmm. But this is such a, frankly, weak class that our team's waiting out. Our team's seeing what other, how, like if you're trying to get Dmitry Orlov, is there any team out there that's willing to offer $8 million right off the top? Or is it going to turn into a race to the bottom to see, we're not paying him that. We'll give him 7. Well, we're not paying him that. We'll give him 7.1. Like maybe it's a slow burn. I don't know. This is looking different than it's been previously. Cause again, it's a pretty weak market. Like trades are better if you could pull it off this year. But those cap hits, Rosie, like it's so hard to make a trade right now.
The cap kills everybody. I mean, it's smart to use all the money you have available. Everyone's trying to win and do things and make their roster better, and you're going to butt up against that cap. But when things don't go right and, you got these longer-term contracts that aren't really panning out and you can't unload them, like your hands are tied. And I think that's, with the cap only going up $1 million, that's like peanuts in the big scheme of things. And yeah, everyone's thinking it's going to go up in the next few years, but it just seems like with the weak class, no one's really to pull the trigger. Maybe the GMs are sitting here going, well, we'll make these guys sweat until someone just needs to have some security this summer and pulls a trigger on us. But it just seems like kind of a holding pattern with a pretty average class of free agents and nothing big like earth-shaking, shattering news coming out. And that's kind of expected, I guess.
Yeah. Let's keep scanning along kind of what's going on here. Seen some reports as well that the Sabres are re-upping Tyson Yost to a 1-year deal. And I did just see Frank Seravalli tweeting the Cam Talbot deal to the LA Kings, 1 year, $1 million plus bonus or performance-based bonuses as well. Mike, your thoughts on Talbot going to the LA Kings?
They must not have had a lot of cap space here. Talbot's numbers, not just his traditional, but his advanced numbers have been declining. Yeah. So between this and Copley, it doesn't give me a lot of confidence that they could win a cup with either of them unless they play beyond what they've shown the last couple of years. So I don't know. I think they would have loved to have gone bigger if they could, whether trade or free agency. But this is I'm not hot on this.
So their big shot was getting Pierre-Luc Dubois. Was it a mistake to go for a big name forward and not try to get one of the bigger name goalies out there?
Well, they've got great defense, and now they have one of the best forwards groupings, especially at center in the NHL. You're going to go Kopitar, Pierre-Luc Dubois, Dano. I mean, you're trying to compete with Vegas, who goes, I mean, they're going, man, look at that. You're going Eichel, Stevenson, Carlson, Nyquist. And then you got Edmonton with Leon and Connor and whoever else. Like, I get it. It's just, I don't know with this, man. Like, I like Cam Talbot a lot, but he's also been hurt a decent amount. He's been good in a tandem before, but he also hasn't started in the Stanley Cup playoffs for a full run in a while. So this is, man, I would have gone for Joey Decord for 2 years at $1 million, like on a free agent market, if I could have, and rolled the dice. I would have felt better about that than going to a 36-year-old that you're hoping can stay healthy.
Yeah, just looking at their cap situation in LA, courtesy of our friends over at Cap Friendly, $2 million in projected cap space. So that Talbot deal coming in at $1 million. They have $1 million left. They got 12 forwards, 62 goalies under contract. So it looks like their roster in LA is more or less set here with only $2.5 million committed between the pipes. That is an astonishing number. Rosie, what do you make of those LA Kings? Does the addition of Dubois, do you view them as more of a threat to the Golden Knights and the Oilers in that division?
They're in the West. Who cares?
I should have known that's what you were going to say to me for that. Sorry. Do you want to give your eighth take on Reaves to the Leafs? Is that what you want to do?
Yeah. What are we talking about right
fine.
now?
I just gave the best teams down the spine in the West. Let's give it over to Frank
here. Let's bring in Frank.
Yeah, so more updates on the goalie front. Joonas Korpisalo is going to the Ottawa Senators. 5-year deal, $20 million. So that's a big ticket item for the Sens, who have really tried to get their goaltending right. So Korpisalo to the Sens. Freddie Anderson staying in Carolina, 2 times $3.4 million.
Really?
So the Canes now have Raanta and Anderson back with Kochetkov as the third wheel, spending a total of $4.9 million. So that looks like a pretty decent little tandem for the Canes as they run it back in net. We thought they were going to, but it's interesting that they waited all the way until the market opened. Maybe one of those things where they say to those guys, hey, feel free to go out and check what's out there and then give us a chance to come back and match it. So those guys aren't moving on, but the whopper is Joonas Korpisalo. 5 years,
Frank, what was
20 million bones.
How many years did Anderson get with Carolina?
2 times 3.4.
Okay, so that gives a bit of stability there. But Korpisalo, so I was way off yesterday. I said something frivolous that Anderson was going to get $6 million. That was ridiculous yesterday. You were right on that, Frank. But this is exactly what you just said, Frank. It turns out Ottawa held the keys to the free agent goalie market, and they took Korpisalo. Because right now, Pittsburgh's the only team left that needs a number one goaltender. Am I wrong here? If my numbers are off. So does that mean Tristan Jarry could end up back in Pittsburgh, or does he get left without a seat as a number one? This is interesting, guys.
Yeah, so Pittsburgh, I don't know what's going to happen there. All I know is that they were ready and considering to make wholesale changes to their goaltending. I mentioned before there was some speculation that Casey DeSmith was out there and available and that they were looking to swap out both of their guys. So,
Guys, this
intriguing.
is unbelievable to think about with Ottawa. They now have Jonas Korpisalo and Anton Forsberg as their tandem. Do you know what that tandem has previously accomplished in the pro hockey world?
No.
They won a Calder Cup in the American Hockey League for Jared Bednar and the Lake Erie Monsters, or Cleveland Monsters, which was the Columbus Blue Jackets organization. As a tandem. I think that was like 5-6 years ago, but they did.
Rosie has got his Reaves tough guy to the Leafs. Mike is getting his Calder Cup AHL playoff performers into the show as well.
Pet
We're checking
projects.
off a lot of the daily Face-Off Live bingo card here in the last couple of minutes, boys. All right, Rosie, McKenna, I'm going to throw you guys off to the side for a couple of minutes here, and we're going to break down kind of what just happened here on the goalie market and slap some grades on it with our pals Matt Larkin and Nick Alberga. Gentlemen, let's start with the absolute doozy that was Jonas Korpisalo getting $4 million. Like, he's getting 20 schmil total from the Ottawa Senators. What do you make, Matt, of the Sens pushing it in on a guy like Korpisalo?
Well, it's tough because the market didn't have that absolute gem. Connor Hellebuck will be the guy next year if he doesn't sign an extension. But I respect that Pierre Dorion, he's trying to go all in. He understands this group. They were knocking on the door of a playoff spot, and they need to push through and try and do a better job keeping pucks out of their net. The question is Korpisalo the answer? I do think he was a different goaltender the moment he got his hip repaired. He had a great season with Columbus. He looked really good in the regular season with LA, but then in crunch time, he crumbled a bit in the playoffs. So he's still a relatively wild card commodity. I give it a B-. I like the effort from the Ottawa Senators to shore up their position. I think he was one of the best goalies on the market, but he's hardly a sure thing, and it kind of gives me a little bit of PTSD to the old Matt Murray deal.
To your point, I think you look specifically, guys, at the market. What's out there is the big time question, right? It is sort of a domino effect. I'm a bit surprised that the Carolina Hurricanes are rolling back with 3 goalies. Maybe it just speaks to how they feel about the fragility and volatility of the 3 netminders. But to me, it's just more of the same for the Ottawa Senators. And again, it's just so hard to find that bona fide stud goalie. But Matt, I don't know if you feel the same way. If there's a guy like Connor Hellebuck out there, I don't care if he's got 1 year left on his contract. I can't believe there's absolutely no market for Connor Hellebuck, who once again was a Vezina candidate this season. And I understand why. It's the market. I understand the fact that he wants near the Vasilevsky money. But if you have the opportunity for the Ottawa Senators to throw that type of cash at a Jonas Korpisalo, or pretty much go all in on a guy like Connor Hellebuck, show him the city and prove something to him, and you choose Korpisalo, it's pretty crazy to me.
Yeah, especially if you're going to spend that money anyways. It's not like you're throwing a 1 year deal at $1 million. Then you may as well chase the big fish. I get that goaltending is more fickle than it's ever been. We saw Adin Hill and Sergei Bobrovsky. Neither guy was even a starter for his own team at the beginning of the playoffs. They go all the way. That said, I agree with you. I think Connor Hellebuck is a unicorn. He is the biggest workhorse goaltender in the league. Nobody is close. If you look at over the past 6-7 years, nobody's even within a mile of him in terms of games started. He keeps his body in great shape. He plays a style that's not taxing on his body. He arrives on time to the shooter. He's so technically efficient. He's built to be durable. He's a throwback. So I 100% agree. I would be going all in to get Hellebuck.
Almost 4,000 people watching on the Daily Face-Off YouTube. Thanks to everybody tuning in to the DFO Live Free Agent Special, brought to you by Betano, Betano.ca. The game starts now over at Betano. So what was your grade? Give me a final grade for that Korpisalo deal, Larkin.
Korpisalo, did I not actually give the grade? I think it's a B-. And if you want a bonus grade, I'm going to throw a C+ to the Carolina Hurricanes. I just feel a little bad for Pyotr Kochetkov. He's a really good goaltender, but he's waiver exempt, and they seem to be abusing that. He's got the $2 million AAV. He's been extended, but they're just going to keep playing with him, sending him up and down to AHL Chicago next year, which I kind of don't understand the logic there. I think he's a perfectly good goaltender, but hey, when you have injury-prone Raanta, you also want extra insurance, so Freddie Anderson's back too.
Yeah, selfishly, as a Pyotr Kochetkov fantasy owner, I'm pissed off today. I don't know what the hell the Carolina Hurricanes are doing. You don't win in the playoffs, so let's run it back with the same guys. Maybe, again, it just speaks to the goaltending market out there, and it's a definition of insanity throughout this league, but a variety of different markets we see it, Ty.
Frank Seravalli is ready to roll with something else. Frank, what do you got? Give me
It's a whopper for Radko Gudas. 3 years times $4 million, $12 million Radko Gudas gets going to the Anaheim Ducks. We talked before that Gudas, coming off a great playoff run for the Florida Panthers, they couldn't afford to pay him that number. And he goes to Anaheim, a team that last year basically had only 2 bona fide NHL defensemen in their lineup on a nightly basis. They need more support for some of the young guys that they'd like to integrate into their lineup. And Gudas gets the biggest payday of his career at age 33, which is really quite something.
Good day to be a third pairing D-man. All right, thanks, Frankie. We'll send you back up to your insider cam there, gentlemen. Throw a grade on. I guess Anaheim wants vets, and Radko Gudas gets to live on the beach. So does everybody win? I don't know, Larkin. What do you got?
Can I just give an A to somebody? What is going on today? The Anaheim
disaster,
Ducks,
dude. This is
they're
a disaster.
Full tank mode. You just drafted Leo Carlsson, and you're throwing big money to buy high on Radko Gudas. Big term there. It's not just the AAV, it's the term. And I'm not surprised to see Gudas cash in. I guess maybe the logic here from Pat Verbeek is, hey, people love to pick on Trevor Zegras for his antics, for his shifty dangles, because he's that new school kid. He pisses off people. So now you got to answer to Radko Gudas. I still hate the signing for the Ducks. I don't understand it given the juncture that they're at in their rebuild. So it's, I don't know, a D plus. Let's call it a D plus.
I'll be nicer. I'll go with a C minus. I've got a weird taste in my mouth, but I think it's just King Street West last night in Toronto. I don't know how teams are getting involved in this market. It's such an underwhelming day, and I understand we're at the beginning of things here in free agency, guys, but outside of Blake Wheeler and that, I don't know how the hell Blake Wheeler gets 55 point signs for $800K. That's value right there for the New York Rangers. Outside of that, I could pick apart any signing today. Credit to these guys for the money and some of the, the coin these guys are getting. I think it's important to stress too. It's a weird year in the fact that it's very, very likely we go through day one, Larks, of free agency, and not one guy signs for max term.
Also, the goalie market has been the most active on this day. It looks like, I think the team actually announced it. They did. Detroit's getting James Reimer on a 1 year, $1.5 million contract as well. So, okay, sorry. So Nick's going to go D minus there. I don't think we need to break down that signing all too much. You know who you can give an A to, Matt Larkin? One, your guys' performance on the show. You were excellent. And also the agents for Radko Gudas, Luke Schenn, and Ryan O'Reilly, who all secured their clients a nice little bit of money. We might keep rolling if we keep getting breaking news, gents, but for now, I will send you off and back to the green room, I suppose, the virtual green room on Daily Faceoff Live, and bring back our players room panel with Mike McKenna and Jay Rosehill, both former NHLers, both guys who have been through the free agent process before as well. Mike, James Reimer to Detroit. I guess that's a good little backup for Billy Husso.
Not really.
Okay.
I'm kind of I don't know, man. There's so many good young goalies out there, and it's we just keep running it back. And yeah, it was a really tough year with San Jose. I mean, he's a mildly consistent guy. He's better as a backup, so that'll let Husso. I don't know, man. Where's Laurent Brossoit in the mix here? It was really good and plays a modern style and is a little bit more dynamic. And Tristan Jarry's out there. The Devils still need a goaltender. Where does Martin Jones fit in the mix right now? I guess I'm just kind of surprised by this. I didn't even have Reimer on my list. I thought Quick and Reimer might be done, guys. And I'm just learning here very quickly that teams still value the veteran goaltenders more than I even thought. And maybe I could have played another year or two. I don't know. I think I'm reading the market a little wrong here, Rosie.
Shit. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, yeah, Reimer, is he a starting guy? No, but yeah, it seems like people are putting some emphasis on a guy who's been around for, 12, 13 plus, 14, 15, however long. It's 9, 10, 11. He kind of came in with the Leafs and made a splash, and he's made a hell of a grind of it since then. Is it earth-shaking news? No, but, I also, understand the sentiment of some of the money getting thrown around here. Blake Wheeler 800, Radko Gudas 4 and change. It's kind of all over the place. You're trying to scratch your head thinking of what the GMs are doing here, and it seems like it's a lot of different personal moves being made for GMs that just are trying to make their team a little bit better and fill some holes, and it seems to be scattered all over the place today.
Frank's got something here. Let's slide him in. Frank, what do you got?
So the Edmonton Oilers have landed Connor Brown, and the most exciting part about this for the Oilers, Tyler, we've talked about this for a long time, is the structure that was available to them with Connor Brown. It's $775,000 that will count against the cap, which is beautiful for Edmonton. And he can earn an additional $3.25 million in performance-based bonuses this year. And so someone watching might say, hey, wait a second, that guy, he's not over 35. The reason he can do that is because he sat out for more than 100 days last season on LTIR coming off of that ACL tear. And that opens you up to a special contract structure that the Oilers were able to leverage. That $4 million is close to the AAV that he had on the table elsewhere. And more than that, the chance to reunite with Connor McDavid. Connor Brown played, of course, with him in Erie. Pretty special opportunity, left some more security on the table, I believe, elsewhere to go to Edmonton.
Interesting stuff. Thank you very much, Frank. And we'll keep tabs on if we get any more breaking news here towards the end of our show. I mean, a hell of a position for Connor Brown to put himself in. You get the $775K. I'm interested to see what those bonus thresholds are. I wouldn't be surprised if a handful of them, maybe the ones that get him into that $3 million range, are like easy to hit bonuses, and maybe the last little $500 to $1 million is a bit more difficult. But he leaves money on the table and he bets on himself, Mike. I like that.
Yeah, you like it because you're our bets guy, man. I wouldn't like that at all. But if you're going to bet on playing with anybody, Rosie, there's probably worse people in the world than Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid, huh?
Yeah, think about how many guys you've seen that have just made to put their name on the map by playing with a Sidney Crosby or a Connor McDavid. And I mean, if he's going to go there, if things go well, which he has reason to believe they will, he's going to get, some cash coming his way, but it's just not guaranteed. But he puts himself in a position where he's going to be playing with those guys, or at least get a chance to. And I mean, I could go out there and play and have my numbers substantially, look better than they would elsewhere. So I think he's smart. I think he's putting himself in a position where he's going to have a big year. He's going to be, value is going to be through the roof compared to this year, next year. Cap goes up. They want to keep him. They can't keep him. Doesn't matter. He's going to go into free agency again next year in a much better position than he would otherwise, I think.
The last time these two guys played together, Ontario Hockey League, Erie Otters, Connor Brown had 128 points in 68 games playing with Connor McDavid.
Jesus. Yeah, that's all you need to know, man. He's going to make a name for himself. His stat sheet is going to be out of control just by showing up. So I think it's just a smart move, and that's why he didn't take the guaranteed money. He bet on himself, but he's also betting on Connor McDavid being who he is.
Just stay healthy, please. That's the big thing. Because you could be missing out on money down the road and current money with the way that's structured is with the bonuses.
For sure, that's the one kicker.
Here's the beauty of broadcasting on the internet. We originally said we were going to go for 2 hours. I'm looking right now at a daily Faceoff YouTube that has almost 4,000 people in it, and we hit 7,000 subscribers. So I just got the email. Frank has approved my vacation time for July. So let's keep rolling. Let's not end this thing. Rosie, McKenna, you guys aren't doing anything for the next half an hour, right?
Never.
There's an IndyCar practice I can put on the second screen here, and yeah, I'm good. I'm having a great time. I think Rosie, we might have to crack one though. I think at this point, because
that time is coming for me. Maybe later today with Owen every day. Let's talk a little bit more about this Oilers signing and Connor Brown. Listen, they needed a fourth line center. They needed a top six right winger. Larkin and Alberga might hop on and grade this in a bit. I'm giving Ken Holland an absolute A+ for what he got done today. Yes, that Connor Brown cap hit's going to have to roll the next season, but for a team that's firmly in their win now, Stanley Cup or bust mentality, to go check off fourth line center, top six right winger for a combined $1.5 million. Jay, I think that's just an incredibly tidy piece of work from the Oilers GM.
Oh, it was slick as hell for sure. And I mean, you got to go sniff that out and figure out, why would someone who's going to provide value to us take a deal that we can offer at X amount of money? And you got to sniff that out and you got to put the pieces together. And they find Brown in a position where, hey, this might work for this guy. We can incentivize it with some bonuses, but it can work with our cap. He's got the Connor McDavid connection, obviously, and the history there. So we know that, that has potential. And I mean, it's a slam dunk for them. I think a team that's looking to fill some holes for the, a low amount of money, I think they did a hell of a good job. And I would, assume they're finally going to hear an A plus rating here from somebody of these guys, given the rankings out. But I just can't imagine them doing any better job with what they had to work with.
Yep, I'm all in on this play, man. That's pretty good work by Holland. And again, we talked about it earlier. You want Connor Brown or a Blake Wheeler or a Tarasenko? I'd be all in on Connor Brown, and this salary structure is really advantageous.
Mm-hmm. So the Oilers now, with the Brown signing, have $5.6 million in projected cap space. Evan Bouchard and Ryan McLeod, two RFAs that it sounds like Ken Holland talking at the draft, saying they're both going to be bridge deals there. So it seems like that's it for the summer shopping for Ken Holland. He's going to take care of his own business with McLeod and Bouchard, and the Oilers will roll into next season with that group. We're at the 2-hour mark of the Daily Faceoff Live free agent special. So let me give an update on everything we've seen in kind of the last little bit here. Mackenzie Blackwood, that was earlier today, 2 years, $2.35 million with the Sharks. Freddie Anderson going back to the Carolina Hurricanes, 2 years, a total of $6.8 million. So $3.4 million is the total deal. Tyson Jost going back to the Buffalo Sabres on a 1-year, $2 million deal. Jonas Korpisalo gets himself quite the payday from the Ottawa Senators, 5 years, $4 million per year. Tyler Pitlick is another bottom six signing that the New York Rangers have picked up today. Connor Brown going to the Oilers. Radko Gudas locking up a 3-year, $12 million deal with the Anaheim Ducks. James Reimer is going to Detroit for $1.5 million next season. Morgan Geekie is going to the Boston Bruins on a 2-year deal at a $2 million cap hit. Riley Nash, not quite confirmed yet, I don't think, could be going to the New York Rangers. And there were some rumblings earlier about Eric Johnson potentially going to the Buffalo Sabres. Frank, are you nodding your head? Can you give me a thumbs up? Is that happening? Okay.
I think it's a short-term, short money deal. 1 year, 1.25 is somewhere in the neighborhood that EJ got in Buffalo. It's going to be weird to see him not in an Avs uniform after so long there, but I like the signing for Buffalo because they needed a little veteran presence. They bring up Okposo back. That blue line is so incredibly young and talented, but to have a guy like that anchor your third pair for that money, I don't think you can go wrong.
Seems like a smart move there. Thank you, Frank. We'll be along for another 30 minutes here on the Daily Faceoff Live free agent special. We got a couple of things to break down. So Rosie, McKenna, before we wrap up the show, I'm going to throw you guys off to the side a little bit. I'll put you on the bench for a couple of minutes, and we'll go back to Nick Alberga and Matt Larkin, both fantasy contributors at Daily Faceoff. Matt Larkin, also the editor-in-chief of Daily Faceoff. Nick Alberga, he is one half of Leafs Morning Take. Gentlemen, Connor Brown, I guess, is one of the more significant ones we've seen in the last 15 minutes here. Matt, positive grade coming?
Yes, finally, I am handing out an A+. This is an absolute home run of a contract by Ken Holland, understanding because of the fact that Connor Brown missed so many games of that knee injury, he's eligible for a deal with that excellent performance bonus structure. He comes in so cheap, and he fills a crucial void for the Edmonton Oilers between Kyle Yamamoto and Jesse Puljujarvi. Neither guy over the past several years could establish himself as the big presence on the right side. You bring in Connor Brown, who has that connection to Connor McDavid. He's played on scoring lines before. He's also an all-situation stud. He's led the league or tied for the league lead in shorthanded goals before. Love this buy low by the Edmonton Oilers, and I think that they are going to love him out there.
Yeah, I think it is certainly worth the flyer. The fact that he missed, the entire season or the majority of the season at that, tells you all you need to know. I think there's element of risk for sure, but he gets to be back with his boy, Connor McDavid. I do agree. He fits that type of role that they're looking for in Edmonton, and depth is a big thing. But I do think a guy like Connor Brown brings a lot to the table because of his versatility, right? He can play on your fourth line, play on your first line in moments of need where guys are banged up. So I do like the value buy, and that's sort of my takeaway early on here in free agency. Some of the value buys out there. I mentioned Blake Wheeler. This is top my list as well. So I'd probably give it about a B.
Okay, he just talked about Blake Wheeler, Matt. I'd love for you to maybe do a little rank them for me in the order of their fit and how you like the deals, the buy lows, the buyouts even. Wheeler, JVR, OEL. Rank those in order of how much you like them for those teams.
I think you actually just did, Tyler. I think that's the exact order. So with Blake Wheeler, it's similar to the Oilers situation in that they have that big void on the right side. Of course, Patrick Kane is gone, and Vladimir Tarasenko doesn't sound like he's coming back. Capo Caco has not been able to establish himself as really trustworthy on a scoring line. So Blake Wheeler, he cruises in 71 points per 82 games, as Frank said, over the last few seasons. And yes, he seemed to have fallen out of favor in Winnipeg, and there were questions about the leadership culture there, but he's not going to be under any kind of pressure to be the guy with the New York Rangers. He can just help on one of those scoring lines. Maybe it's going to be with Chris Kreider, Mika Zibanejad. Maybe it's going to be Artemi Panarin, Vincent Trocheck. Love that fit. JVR, I think a nice cheap signing because Taylor Hall's out. You have Pavel Zacha, who's elevated to the second line left wing this past season. And as a third line left winger who can play net front, I think it's a tidy little piece of business by Don Sweeney. And OEL, I mentioned before, decent signing as long as he's sheltered.
Yeah, I'm with you on that front. I think when you look at Florida specifically and OEL, I think it's a good fit considering some of the injuries to some of their guys to start the year, namely Brandon Montour and Ekblad. And I think he fills a need. And I just love these type of stories where guys are up against it, and it was just a dire time for a change of scenery for a guy like Oliver Ekman-Larsson. So I wonder if he gets reinvigorated by that, especially in a market like Florida. It's not very taxing. You got some pretty decent players on that roster. So I like the buy low prospects of that. JVR is a good fit as well with the Boston Bruins. Again, we're all waiting to see what happens here with Patrice Bergeron and David Krejci. Clearly, if those two guys or even one of them doesn't come back, it's just a way different team, specifically up the middle. But at the very least, I think a guy like JVR will complement the depth of that roster and help out the likes of like David Pastrnak.
Mm-hmm. All right, gentlemen, appreciate your insight once again. Nick Alberga and Matt Larkin hopping in to grade and I guess rank a couple of the signings we've seen today on the Daily Faceoff Live Free Agent Special. Again, presented by Betano. The game starts now at betano.ca. Mike McKenna and Jay Rosehill are lurking. They're sitting around. I'm going to bring them in, but say neither of you can talk because Frank says he has news. What's up, Frank?
Yeah, Connor Clifton was one of the well-sought-after defensemen on the market. He goes to the Buffalo Sabres, $10 million over 3 years, so $3.33 per year. Cliffy Hockey, love the way he plays. That guy has balls the size of a dump truck, and looking forward to seeing him be added to that Buffalo blue line.
All right.
Truck-sized balls. Those are really big balls.
Large attachments, as they say in the racing world. It's funny because I'm going to be watching WWE's Money in the Bank here a little bit later, and The Miz on there is constantly screaming that he has massive balls, not tiny balls, and this fits right in it. So I know we're getting weird here, but this is a good signing for Buffalo, though. Like I wanted to see Orlov go there, but he's a big ticket item. He doesn't, and I get it, right? If you're Kevin Adams, you're trying to stick to the game plan here and have cap flexibility down the road when some of your players that are coming along are going to eat up some of that space. Mm-hmm. Clifton probably makes more sense long term than what I was hoping for and projecting they may need. And listen, that club's gonna be pretty good, Rosie. Like they're gonna be, especially if they get some goaltending out of whether it's Levi, Comrie, or Luukkonen. We don't know which it's going to be, but I think it's Levi. They're going to at least challenge this year. I think they'll be knocking on the door for the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know what is with. It seems like goaltenders are kind of underpaid. Like you're talking about, you took a shot at Anderson making huge money and it didn't work out. These guys are all chipping away at a few million here and there. But for how much a goaltender changes your organization, gives you an ability to win. I mean, I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir here, but why aren't any of those guys up there at that $8 million mark where you look at some guys have 3 guys making over $10 million and the goalies are just nowhere to be seen? Where
Rosie, we're getting to breaking news. I love your goalie talk.
Rosie,
Mike
that's all it is.
Too, but Frank's itching. He's got more signings. What do you got, Frank?
Gustav Nyquist is going to the Nashville Predators. Big day for the Preds. Ryan O'Reilly, Luke Schenn. Now you can add Gustav Nyquist to the list. 2 years times $3.185 million. So he gets almost $6.4 million total. A guy that was a real nice fit for Minnesota coming over at the deadline from Columbus. I think he's got lots of game left, especially coming off of that injury, maybe a little bit more fresh heading into next season. And another guy that's highly respected. I love what Barry Trotz is building in Nashville. Created some cap flexibility, did a lot of, different things, buying out Johansson or trading Johansson, buying out Duchesne. Times are changing in Nashville, and Barry Trotz is putting his own stamp on this team that I think can be in the same mix that they were in last year, fighting for a playoff spot.
Thank you very much.
You
Frank.
sure think they would be, making those additions and throwing some cash around, opening up some contract space with Duchesne. It seems like they followed what they said. They wanted to make a culture change, and they've certainly done it today by the looks of things.
Hey, coaching matters too, guys. Like, look what Burnett did with the Panthers. And then he was a huge part of what Jersey did last year, even as associate coach to Lindy Ruff. I wouldn't count him out at all, man. I'm a big fan of this right now, and I think they're going to keep Saros for the long haul too.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Like, you can't count out a team with a Yossi and Saros duo on kind of their back end area, right? Those two preventing goals, that alone is going to help you win a lot of hockey games in any given year. I don't know. I look at that, and heading into this offseason, the biggest hole they have is high-end scoring. Are they a better high-end scoring team in either of your guys' eyes? Because they're not to me. Like, O'Reilly's good defensively. Who's going to score goals on that Predators team? That's always been the question.
Yeah, as far as that goes, they didn't solve that problem today. They solved other problems, added some character, added some experience and some veteran presence. That's all fine and dandy. But like you said, if their problem's scoring goals, I don't think they addressed that so far.
Well, again, I still think they think a lot of it's going to come from within and from the kids that are still growing. And I know that that's a big hope play. But guys, we also just saw the Seattle Kraken be one of the most dynamic offensive teams in the NHL last year, especially 5-on-5. So you can always look to a team like that and hope you can take a page out of it. And by the way, I haven't seen anything come across for Daniel Sprong yet. That's a guy I'm interested to see where he lands.
Yep.
One of the best 5-on-5 players, drivers of offense in the NHL. The guy I really like. So that's one I've had my eye on today as well.
Mm-hmm. Interesting stuff happening in Nashville. Frank's got a little bit more for us. Man, he is on fire. Frankie, what's happening?
Milan Lucic, Boston Bruins, 1 year, $1 million. We thought that was out there for a bit. Like I said, they are in on a bunch of different vets today. I mentioned Kevin Shattenkirk on the back end. They got James Van Riemsdyk. Some bargain basement buys. Still waiting on some news on Patrice Bergeron and David Krejci. They're planning to not have them. And Mike, we were just talking about the Detroit Red Wings and their crease. Alex Lyon is also going to Detroit, 2 years times $900,000. So a little bit of extra security for the Wings in net.
That also creates competition in net for the Wings because Ville Husso's there at 4.75. You know he's the incumbent. Now you've got Reimer, as well as having Lyon in the mix. You've also got Grand Rapids down the road. And we've seen this playbook before from teams like Toronto with the Marlies, like Detroit with Grand Rapids. They're not afraid to send players up and down. And I think it's eyes wide open for anybody there, especially with Detroit, that if Reimer, you're on a 1 year deal, if you get outplayed by Lyon, you may be headed to Grand Rapids. We'll have to see how this goes. So I could easily see that play. We haven't seen anything come across, so whether they involve trade protection or movement clauses or anything. But I think that's a reality for those teams. Even Rebo's deal, Rosie, like, I could see him with the Marlies by the end of this thing. It happened to Wayne last year.
By the end of it, potentially. I mean,
or not
at
Wayne,
the
but
age
Clifton.
He's at and the role he plays, it's not to say, that couldn't happen. And I'm sure he realizes that too at the twilight years of his career. But, it's just exciting to think Boston, Toronto, they both got heavies in the lineup. Do we hear the bell go and see big boys play real kind of tough-nosed hockey and see those guys do what they do best? So that's just interesting. It's exciting for me as a fan to watch and see if anything comes of that now that guys are kind of adding some so-called heavies these days.
Yeah. Just looking at that Boston Bruins cap situation again over with capfriendly.com. So $9.6 million remaining in cap space for the Bruins. That's with 9 forwards, 6 D-men, and 1 goalie signed. So depending on how things would play out with a piece like Jeremy Swayman, there is maybe room for them to add. Oh, wait, I'm going to stop my thought. Frank's back. What's up, Frank?
The Vancouver Canucks, first little insight into their day, I believe. 1 year, $3 million deal for Ian Cole. So Ian Cole, of course, goes way back with Jim Rutherford. Won Stanley Cup in Pittsburgh. He's going to Van, same exact money that he earned last year with the Tampa Bay Lightning, 1 year, $3 million bones.
All right. Thank you, Frank. Gentlemen, we have seen a run on kind of those D-men who slot in as like 5-6 guys, maybe 4-5-6 guys as well. I'm a little bit intrigued by that move by the Vancouver Canucks. There have been rumblings that they were kind of poking around in that market, but I guess for 1 year, I mean, really not a lot of complaints there, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't qualify Ethan Bear. He got hurt at Worlds.
Yeah.
They got to fill a slot here. Ian Cole just keeps getting those 1 year, 2 year deals here for that dollar figure. So that's fine. He'll play in that pairing, but this isn't going to fill the gap that team needs. I mean, they've got Quinn Hughes and hopefully Philip Roenick is able to keep it rocking in the right direction there. So it's a place filler. There's no way around it. Like, Colsey's a jobber at this point. I know how that goes.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Fill in holes. It's not an earth-shattering move by any stretch, but where the Vancouver Canucks are right now, I think they'll take anything as far as moving in the right direction.
1 year, $3 million for Ian Cole in Vancouver. We are over 7,100 subs now on the YouTube. Shout out to everyone who's popped in and watched the show today. If you're just tuning in, well, welcome in. We got about 15 minutes remaining on the program today, and hit that subscribe button for us. If you don't mind, do us a little solid here as we move through the third hour of the Daily Faceoff Live free agent special. To finish my thought on the Boston Bruins, actually, that's what I was doing before Frank jumped in with the Ian Cole news. So again, $9.6 million. They need to get Swayman done. They need to get Trent Frederick done. They maybe have a little bit of money to add one of these forwards that's in like that $3.5 to $5 million range. Like, again, maybe, and that's dependent on Bergeron if they have the money. Maybe a JT Compher makes sense. Maybe a Matt Duchene makes sense. Is there a fit out there in your eyes, Mike, that you like for the Bruins?
Well, I immediately think as centerman, but you need somebody, I think, that's versatile at center. So maybe it's not necessarily Duchene. He can play both as well. If he's bargain barrel, he might be the guy that fits into it. But there's just not a lot of money there. You know, like, you're not going to go grab a Michael Bunting with any of that, and Frederick's going to cost you a little bit as well. So, I'm curious. I'm looking through our list now to see. We're getting down on it here, aren't we, Rosie? Like, where does Kerfoot go?
Frank's breaking more. Frank, what a hot run over these last 15.
Yeah, so Teddy Blueger is going to the Vancouver Canucks, 1 year times $1.9 million. I mentioned him the other day, actually yesterday on Vancouver radio, as someone that just makes sense. A bargain basement buy that, for that price point, for a team that has really struggled killing penalties, you add a penalty killer and a high IQ player at a number that's not going to break the bank and doesn't have any long-term commitment attached to it. Really nice piece of business by the Vancouver Canucks, getting Teddy Blueger done at 1 year, 1.9.
Good stuff, Frank. Teddy Blueger with a little bottom six edition for the Vancouver Canucks. So they seem to be rounding out the edges of their roster as well. I totally lost the Dallas Stars have announced this from their official Twitter account. They have sent Colin Miller to the New Jersey Devils for a 5th round pick in 2025. So Colin Miller on their blue line was making $1.8 million. So Dallas, a lot of people were speculating, hey, are they going to look to like buy out a guy like Ryan Suter maybe? They don't go that route. Instead, they shave money off their blue line by trading Colin Miller for nothing. Mike, I wonder what Dallas is going to get up to this offseason now. That'll push them from $4.3 million to, math on the air, shouldn't do it, about $6.2 million in open cap space with a good amount of pieces already signed. I wonder if they'll dip into a bigger market somewhere.
Well, I think they're also going to bring back Joel Hanley, defenseman that's been there for a couple of years. He's been their 7th guy. I'm a big fan of Joel Hanley, so that's a great deal. If he does end up going back there, we'll see. But I wonder about decor there. You said Ryan Suter. I'd be surprised if Nil buys him out. That doesn't seem to be Nil's playbook as the GM of that team. But I think they need an upgrade on defense. Miro Heiskanen shouldn't be playing 30 minutes a night. Pete DeBoer loves to have bullets in the chamber on D. He had Shea Theodore and Alex Pietrangelo with the Vegas Golden Knights. He had Burns and Carlson in San Jose. I wonder if the Stars don't make a play at Ryan Graves. I think he'd be a good fit there. So that's where I think they go. They keep saying they need a scoring winger. I don't think that's as big of a case as they need defense, because I don't think their top four quite competes with some of the teams in the West.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Is Suter still on that contract from Minnesota, that $100 and some million
He's still
deal?
earning checks.
He's still getting paid on it, baby.
Still getting paid, but he's on the cap for 2 more years with Dallas at only $3.6 million. He looked like a guy. I mean, he got exposed in the playoff run there. I wonder if they're looking for an upgrade, and now with the Miller money off the books, they might have some flexibility to do something there if they want. Their forward group looks solid. So I think you're right, Mike. I think it's a blue line ad for the Dallas Stars. We'll just see what direction they kind of want to go. They also did re-up Joel Hanley to a 2-year, $787,000 deal earlier today. Yeah, keep my eye on a few things here as we head towards the end of the Daily Faceoff Live free agent special. Again, live on the DFO YouTube and brought to you by Betano. The game starts now at betano.ca. Aaron, if we can maybe flash back and just go through the top 10 of this free agent board, starting at the top of what we have here, and we'll rattle through some of the bigger signings that we've seen so far today. Orlov, Bertuzzi, Comfort, Graves, Killorn. The top 5 still sitting untouched right now. The only 2 off the board are Wheeler and O'Reilly. A majority of the things that have broken so far today have been largely goalie based. It's pieces, and it's not even the big guy, Tristan Jarry, isn't off the board, but Korpisalo, Freddie Anderson at the bottom. They each get in the $3 to $4 million range. Connor Brown's going to Edmonton on that bargain deal, and OEL, after being bought out by Vancouver, gets another 2.25 for the Florida Panthers. How about the next name on that list, gentlemen? How about Max Pacioretty at number 12 on the board? Oh, okay, wait, Frank's got something here, and I think it might involve a big name. Frank, what's up?
It does. Dmitry Orlov, I'm told, is going to the Carolina Hurricanes, the number 1 player on the Daily Faceoff top 75 free agents board. It is a 2-year deal, just under $16 million total, so 7.75-ish on the AAV. Orlov gets more in the AAV, but less on term, and I love this for both sides for that exact reason. The Canes get a really good defenseman who brings some physicality and can provide some offense, as he showed in Boston, but also then puts just under $16 million in his jeans. And 2 years from now, when the cap goes up and it will be $92-ish million a year, he'll have a chance to become a free agent again at age 33. We've seen the 33-year-old defensemen that have signed big tickets today. Luke Schenn, Radko Gudas, those guys, 33, definitely not too old to be hitting the open market. So just under 16 schmil total for Dmitry Orlov in Carolina.
Hey, Frank, I'll put you on the spot maybe with something here, but I'm looking at that blue line. Slavin, Burns, Shea, Pesce, Chatfield, Orlov now thrown into that mix as well. Does this say anything about the future of Brett Pesce in Carolina?
I think it probably... I don't want to say spells the end, because I think that they're in a spot where they can have all these guys on their cap.
Yeah.
But I think it certainly makes anyone, either Shea or Pesce, certainly a little bit easier to move, expendable.
There you go.
Do you think Gavrikov and Orlov were on a yacht somewhere discussing contracts because they both went the 2-year route?
Similar play?
They also might be represented by the same agent.
Interesting, huh?
All right.
It's smart play. Smart play. When guys lock themselves up,
they're not. Just so you know, they're not. But it's a similar play, and you know, Orlov a little bit higher end than Gavrikov, so makes sense on the AAV front.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Frank. Some of the cliche terms, boys, we've been hearing so far today are bet on yourself, low-cost ad as well. But I don't know. I don't hate the mindset of some of these guys, like an Orlov. Go play on a competitive team like Carolina. Go maybe put up some good numbers. Get more of that playoff warrior kind of moniker, that reputation, and see if at age 33 you can go get yourself another deal. I don't hate it, Jay.
Yeah, I mean, barring any disastrous injury, you're basically, setting yourself up for even more money, for even more success, for even more freedom, for even more choice, and to go to a team that, is only getting better and is one of the powerhouses in the East there. I think it's a smart play, and I think that's most likely to happen. He'll go there, have success, be the guy that he is, and then whammy, he gets free agency again, like you say, at that 33 years of age. It's not like he's 38, and really get paid there again, and then try to maximize your value for the last however many years of your contract or of your career. I think it's smart, and I think it's going to work out for him.
Yeah. Mike, your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I'm just surprised it's Carolina, guys. Simple as that. That's a team that's been loaded on D. That's now kind of even more loaded on D and on the short term. So if you're going for somebody with a 2-year deal, I can see how they could structure this. And obviously, to me, this comes back to saving all that money on goaltenders. They didn't have to pay a lot to get Raanta and Anderson back in the fold. And now with Orlov off, you wonder, where does Graves go? And you also wonder, how about Scott Mayfield? It's a name we haven't talked about yet. I mean, is that an Islanders guy? Does he fit within the Dallas Stars? He's right-handed, and Dallas could probably use another one like that. So again, that defensive market's one that's going to have to shake out here.
Fair enough. We're going to slap a grade on this bad boy. So Rosie, Mike, I'll put you guys off on the side for a couple of minutes here, and we'll bring in Matt Larkin and Nick Alberga. Gentlemen, it is Dmitry Orlov going to the Carolina Hurricanes, a 2-year deal. So a little bit of a bet on yourself thing, but also when a guy is getting like well over $10 million over the course of those 2 years to bet on himself, feels like a win-win for everyone involved. Nick, I'll start with you. Throw a grade on this bad boy. What do you make of Orlov taking a 2-year deal with the Canes?
I like the B+. I'll give it a B+ here. Certainly, I think you look at Carolina, this is what they do. They stockpile their blue line, and it just leads me to wonder what this means for Brett Pesce, who's 1 year away from his UFA status, and his name has been out there on the trade market. But this is equivocally what Carolina does. I like the fit there. I think he had a strong finish to his season, certainly with the Boston Bruins. So good grade from me, Larks.
Yeah, for me, it's an A-, and I'll say with a little extracurricular work done, Waddell, you can bump that up to an A+. And what I mean is, I hope it's a precursor to a trade for a forward. It's great to bring in Dmitry Orlov. I think he's one of the more well-rounded blue liners in the league. He's not great at any one thing, but he can sort of play in any situation. He's a decent puck mover. He has a little bit of physicality. He does a little bit of everything well. But this team already was rich on defense. It's already an elite defensive team. So it's a bit of a law of diminishing returns for me. And I'm hoping it means that we'll see another trade for a marquee forward. That's what Carolina needs right now.
Frank,
yeah, I was going to say, just to add to your conversation that you're having about Carolina, I don't think this, just to clarify, they're planning, I think, right now to keep everyone on defense in the fold. So they had some room. They think, building from defense out is one way to do it. They feel pretty confident about their goaltending situation, and then doesn't mean they'll stop listening if someone wants to step up and trade for one of those guys. But on the whole, right now, the idea is to keep everyone with Orlov then being added to the mix.
Interesting move there. Carolina kind of doing a bit of a run it back, but obviously Orlov is a massive upgrade for that Hurricanes team. Nick, Matt, you guys were awesome today, guys. I really appreciate you hopping on with some of the instant analysis and signing grades and even the little ranking in there as well. So Matt, Nick, enjoy your summer, boys. And Nick, actually, you're not enjoying your summer yet. You're going live with Leafs Morning Take. Matt, you're covering it all at dailyfaceoff.com. But thanks again for hopping on.
Always.
Absolute pleasure, Tyler. You're killing it today, buddy.
Oh, you're too nice, Matt Larkin. You're too nice. Let's bring back in Jay Rosehill and Mike McKenna here as we continue to roll along on the Daily Face-Off Live Free Agent Special brought to you by Botano. Mike, we just heard Frank say that, building from the blue line out in Carolina, you rattle off those names and you go, okay, Slavin, Burns, sick, Shea, Pesce, good D-men. You add Orlov, nasty. Is this the best blue line in the NHL?
I'd say them in Vegas, and no surprise, look at the two best teams in the league when it comes to defending. I think that it's probably a toss-up between them. I think you'd be hard-pressed to find it, because usually at this point, most teams have 1 or 2 D committed at that $8 million mark or above. That's a real horse, maybe a secondary or third, and then that third pairing is always the one you look at and you go, I don't see that with Carolina, and I don't see it with Vegas. So take a toss-up on this, but adding Orlov to me, that is tough to compete with it. But maybe just not quite as mobile as Vegas is, though, right? With Pietrangelo and Theodore, Burns is a PP guy, maybe not as mobile. So I'd say defense-wise, Rosie, I'd give an edge to Carolina just in pure defense.
Yeah, I mean, they both look solid. I mean, their numbers are good. They're solid teams already, and to think that they added and got deeper in that situation was impressive, man. I think they're both going to have solid seasons and improve on what they already did last year, which was no small feat either. I'm surprised none of them added Justin Holl. Is this like a joke that I got or something? I hear Detroit picks him up. Am I breaking news right now at the trade deadline here?
Hey, I leave all of that work to Frank Seravalli, so I do not know if anything's coming down.
I had my first break yesterday.
We heard there were a handful of teams that were interested in Justin Holl, and I mean, I think you could almost probably predict the deal when you go look, okay, what did Schenn get? What did Gudas get? Not saying that he's as good of a defenseman as those two, but that range, the guys who can play your 4, 5, 6 spots, they seem to be getting paid today pretty well.
If this is true, I don't want to be that guy to break false information and destroy the credibility of this show, but someone's sending me something that says Justin Holl, 3-year, $10.2 million contract.
With Detroit, you said, right?
With Detroit. I'm just saying I got a text. That's an absolute head scratcher, man. That guy is a liability at best, and I cannot believe teams are paying him that amount of money. If it does happen to be true, what he was making was absurd, and when they walked from him, I think that was the best thing the decor on the Maple Leafs could have done. And if he gets that, my God, he's got some pretty serious dirt on somebody in the league.
I heard he may be going to Vancouver earlier, and if that's not happening, that's probably maybe that's the Ian Cole instead of Hall there.
Yeah.
Craig Smith to Dallas. Here's one just coming across. Craig Smith goes to Dallas, so a little depth there.
Decent little bit of depth there. And Frank's got something here. What's up, Mr. Seravalli?
Max Pacioretty is going to the Washington Capitals. Like Connor Brown, interesting structure coming off of the injury, the re-ruptured Achilles. So the Caps get another goal scorer. It's a 1-year deal, $2 million, with an additional $2 million in performance-based bonuses that are easily attainable games played bonuses. So $1 million at 10 games, another $500,000 at 15, and another $500,000 at 20 games. So if Max Pacioretty plays 20 games next year, he gets $4 million. So Caps, they're going to be interesting. Can they get back into the mix in the East with some of these other younger teams, Buffalo, Ottawa, Detroit, continuing to get better and better, and Columbus, another team on the rise in their own division? It's kind of an arms race growing in the East.
Max Pacioretty on one side, Alex Ovechkin on the other side, a right and a left shot on that power play. That could be a goalie nightmare, or not going that far, Mike?
No, it is for sure. I mean, Pacioretty's got one of the best snapshots in the world, and he also just sold his home in Vegas for $11 million. So, woo, giddy up, brother! But I tell you what, a lot of miles on that body, though. Like I would load management him from the start of the season because he hasn't been available for a Stanley Cup playoff in several seasons at this point. I'd play him 50 games, bubble wrap him in the other 30, and then see what you get to towards the end. But if you do get Pacioretty healthy for a full season, along with Tom Wilson there, I don't care how old that team is. You know what I like about Washington? I love their coaching staff. Spencer Carberry, Mitch Love. These guys are the two top coaches that weren't in the NHL the last 2 years. They're both on the same staff, and they got a veteran like Scott Allen there to coach PK and help out those two young guys. Like, I like that mix an awful lot, and I think it could help there.
Frank, really quickly, what do you got?
Yeah, by the way, just wanted to add in on Pacioretty, 10 offers on the table.
Wow.
So he had a lot to sift through, and I think left money on the table to go to Washington.
Okay. Interesting. With Washington, I do wonder a little bit about what they'll look like next year in that East. They missed the playoffs by 12 points this year. Is Florida going to be better? Everyone kind of, I guess this has happened a couple of years now, but everyone expects Buffalo, Ottawa, Detroit to take a push. Can Washington maybe take a push? But on that 1-year deal, with the cap hit also being that low, I mean, hey, if it doesn't work out in Washington and you're out of it by the deadline, Pacioretty's also, if he's healthy, probably a pretty good deadline ad for a whole bunch of teams. We just saw how much work they kind of put in here, or how much work he's put in. So, Rosie, what do you make of this?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it seems like an arms race in the East
Yep.
there. Everyone's pulling triggers. There's some cap space to work with, and to add a guy like him, like you say, maybe getting some miles on the body, I guess, Mike, but still a guy that can provide a lot to this team. And it seems like a lot of guys in the East are just making ads. I'm still scratching my head at how Justin Holl just got a $10 million contract, but that's just me.
You want to talk about Revo to the Leafs to take your mind off it a little bit, Rosie?
Can we circle back to that for a sec?
Yeah.
I'm pretty one-dimensional.
Mike, you are our resident NHL goalie expert. We're moving towards the end of our show here. Tristan Jarry is the number one name still on the board. As you look through the other pieces that are still kind of unsigned and available and some of the jobs that are opening, do you see any more natural fits out there?
Pittsburgh.
Okay. And actually, as you're saying that, Frank hops in and says he's got some news. So we're right back to Frank Seravalli.
Yeah, this is a big one. I talked about this earlier in the week, one of my predictions from when we were in Nashville at the draft. Carson Soucy going to the Vancouver Canucks. 3 times $3.25 million. So just under $10 million for Soucy. Bigger defenseman going from Seattle right up the coast there to the Canucks. Just a Canucks team trying to revamp their defense, which they absolutely needed. Ian Cole, Soucy, and I know they were talking to Justin Holl earlier. Jay, you did touch on it. He is going to Detroit. So they were trying to sniff around on Justin Holl, so it could have been Holl, Soucy, and Cole, but right now at least, it's Cole and Soucy.
All right, there you go. And the rumblings about Hall or about Justin Hall's next deal continue there. So sorry, Mike, we were mid-thought before that note about the Canucks and Carson Soucy. But the goalie, Mark, you mentioned Jarry. You think a return to Pittsburgh makes the most sense?
Well, and not really, no, because I think they do want to turn over that goaltending. It's just that they're the last big dog team without a goalie, and he's the last big dog goalie out there without a place to play. And to me, he was the best free agent goalie out there. So I wonder, at this point, because we haven't seen anything come across, did he overplay his hand? Did he get priced out of certain places? You know, Ottawa, LA, like these are the teams that could have used him. Yeah, I'm not sure. Like Jersey's still out there sniffing around. They still need a veteran goaltender. Unless I missed that, guys. I haven't seen any goaltender come across yet for that club. You got Martin Jones still floating around. Laurent Brossois floating around. I'm starting to wonder if Jarry is going to have to take a short-term deal for lesser money, unless there's something out there that we don't know, unless maybe even the Winnipeg Jets scoop him up knowing that Connor Hellebuck will eventually be on the move someday. I could see that happening.
Looking at the top 10 that Frank Seravalli had at dailyfaceoff.com, 3 of them now off the board with Dmitry Orlov set at number 1. He is off to the Carolina Hurricanes. And then the other 2 in the top 10, Blake Wheelers, you can see at the bottom of your screen. Ryan O'Reilly's going to the Nashville Predators on a 4-year contract as well. Connor Brown, one of the interesting names we were watching. He was doing his media avail right now. And Ryan Rishaug saying the bonuses for that Brown deal are all based on number of games played as well. So similar to the Pacioretty bonus incentive contract that we saw with the Washington Capitals. A lot going on early on in NHL free agency, and the YouTube chat is buzzing as well. We got a couple of Penguins fans in there, Mike. They're with you. They want to see a fresh setup between the pipes in Pittsburgh next season, and a few people dropping in some predictions. Rosie, I'll get your take on Michael Bunting. Josh Mins is in on the chat. He wants to see his Red Wings pick up Bunting. Do you see any natural fits out there for Bunting with him leaving Toronto?
Again, I mean, anyone who wants a player like him could take a stab, but again, it's not necessarily the fit for me on who needs it. It's what is he going to bring? What style of play is he going to play next year? And we know he can fill in, and he's played with Marner, he's played with Matthews, he's had success that way. He can play with some big boys, and I'm just kind of hoping that he, rounds his game out to the rest of it aside from the points, and like I mentioned, learns how to play that role a little bit better. And if he does that and gets that down pat, I think he'd be a good addition to any team.
All right, moving along on the Daily Faceoff Live Free Agent Special, as always, brought to you by Betano. Someone in there, got a Canes fan saying they'd love to see Bunting there. I don't know about that. Hubertson asks if Edmonton's doing anything else outside of Connor Brown. I'd be really surprised, maybe outside of like another fourth line, kind of $775,000 deal that they could pick up there. Again, if you're watching the show on the Daily Faceoff YouTube, feel free to hammer that subscribe button for us as well. Maybe we'll get to 8K today. Hey, Frank said he'll double my vacation time if that's the case. Nope, shaking his head top of the screen. Frank will not be doing that. Sorry. Gentlemen, before I let you two go and we wrap up this show with our insider, Frank Seravalli, you see the bottom, or the rest of the top 5 there at the bottom: Compher, Graves, Killorn. Mike, give me one prediction to wrap up the show.
Oh, man. I think your easiest one to make out of this is that one. I think Killorn could go back to Tampa as a guest, but I have one here. Okay. I think
give me a hot take. Come on.
Here's a hot take. By the end of this thing, I think the Chicago Blackhawks are going to surprise us all and sign somebody to a pretty big ticket that we wouldn't have expected, because I think they're going to be able to sell Connor Bedard being there, and a 4 or 5 year deal by the end of that looks real good to be in a place that you can contend, and it's a good city, and you know you're going to have Foligno and Perry and Bedard. Like, I think Chicago, by the time this is all said and done, could be more in the mix than some of us might have expected.
Okay, Rosie, give me a prediction.
Tyler Bertuzzi to the Calgary Flames. Ooh. How's that sound?
Coming to our neck of the woods here in Alberta. I know Jason Gregor was talking on the DFO rundown about how he's like a bit of an outdoorsman and he wants to go to an area where he can do all the things he likes to off the ice. Hey, not a bad fit there either. Mike McKenna, it was an absolute pleasure doing another year of Daily. Oh, Frank has a bold prediction. Wait, Frank, bold prediction.
Yeah, I think we were all curious, what do the Dallas Stars do with the money that they freed up from Colin Miller? They're looking for a winger. Obviously, they added Max Domi at the trade deadline. They added the other winger from sorry, say that again, from Montreal at the deadline.
Evgeny Dadonov came back to them and then re-upped for 2 years.
I think they're in the mix for one of these wingers that's out there. Bertuzzi, could just take a look at that top 5 that we had. One of those guys, I don't know that they're definitely going to go there. Like Killorn, he'd be a great fit in Dallas. I mentioned Blake Wheeler would have been a great fit. Well, he wanted to go east. Any one of those guys, Tarasenko, like they'd be all great fits. So my bold prediction, the Stars don't have a lot of money. They did just clear some out. That at some point, whether it's today, tomorrow, next week, they end up getting a pretty decent little package for a winger.
All right, there you go. A little bold take from Frank as well. Mike McKenna, always a pleasure to have you on Daily Faceoff Live, my guy. It was another fun year of working with you. Have a good summer, dude.
Yeah, you too, man. We could have done this forever. I feel like we're going to keep it going here off the air.
Yeah. Rosie, free agency, more fun in the media or as a player?
Probably in the media, man. Like Mike said at the beginning, it's a little stressful hinging your whole future on a handful of phone calls. So definitely more relaxing in the media side of things anyways. Even though you guys you've been putting me on air a fair bit, trying to get my takes on all these players. I wish I could break it down the way Mike can, the human encyclopedia, but hey, I'm just me.
Well, don't forget, we got that connection here, fellas. This is it right here. These primary color uniforms of the Norfolk Admirals, where Rosie and I got to ply our trade together. What a feeling.
Tons of fun, boys. Tons of fun. Thanks for being so great on the stream today. Love the analysis. As always, that was the Players Room with Jay Rosehill and Mike McKenna. Going to wrap up the show by bringing in our NHL insider, Frank Seravalli, for one last quick hit. And actually, Frank, this is one, it came in early in the show on our YouTube stream. Someone had like a personal level question for you, actually. Do you remember the first big trader signing you broke as an NHL insider? Oh.
A quick signing before I answer that.
Okay.
Trevor Lewis is going back to the LA Kings. 1 year, $775K. So Trevor Lewis, guy who spent, feels like more than a decade there, going to the Kings.
Yeah.
My first ever real big signing that I had was Kevin Shattenkirk. He was the #1 player available on TSN's free agent frenzy. It wasn't an insider, so to speak, but to get that deal, I think it was 4 years, $6.65 million. And it was one of those, remember you just said, don't do math live. I was standing there and they were like, they gave me a total, whatever the dollars were. And they were like, okay, so what is that on an AAV? And I was like, I don't know, 4 years, whatever. And I was like, oh, like you could see like my brain exploding. But that was an exciting one that I won't forget. So Kevin Shattenkirk.
And big shout out to whoever asked that earlier in the stream. It was like right off the bat, and I saw it, and I was like, man, I've never even asked him that off the air. So I was curious to know that one. Let's wrap up with a little bit more insider stuff here. You see Duchesne, Tarasenko, and Bunting in the back half of our top 10. 4 names still chilling in the top 5 as well. Do you have any insight on one of these 7 names out of the top 10 that are still lingering around? Something you're maybe watching closely in the next hour and a half?
No, there was some talk earlier that Matt Duchesne was done. That's obviously not the case. I think there was a lot of interest in Bunting, and he was sifting through a bunch of different things. I haven't heard much on JT Compher today, so I don't know what's going on there. Some of these bigger guys that are looking for higher AAVs may have to do exactly what Orlov did and take a little bit more on a shorter term deal to get to the market again when it begins to open up cap wise, because there's just really not much cap space out there. And not surprised at all if you continue to scroll through our board. The guys way further down the list were really well taken care of today. There's lots of guys that had signed in the 20s and 30s in our top 75 that make sense. And I was saying before, the intrigue to me wasn't in the top 10. It was in where will these guys go on some smaller term deals that are really going to add up for teams that are trying to improve on the margins.
Fair enough, Frank. And with that, I guess it's a wrap on season 2 of Daily Faceoff Live. Another fantastic year. A big shout out to all of our everyday listeners, people like Jeremiah, Teresa, Barra, a ton. I know I'm probably missing a bunch of you, but it was a fun year of doing these shows. And I think we'll talk to everyone again next year, right, Frank?
Loved having us grow Daily Faceoff Live and everything on dailyfaceoff.com this year. Huge shout out to everyone behind the scenes that has helped us all year long. Aaron Bordato, Alex Allard, Tyler Yaremchuk. You do a ton of heavy lifting and steering this ship, and appreciate your work on a daily basis. Matt Larkin, Stephen Ellis, Colby Cohen, Mike McKenna. Go through the team. We've got a fantastic group of people, not just in front of the camera and pushing all the buttons, but our support staff, Jay Downton, Mike Gagnon, like the whole group, David Quadrelli. Really thrilled to have everyone on our team, and got to give a shout out to our dailyfaceoff.com news team as well. All those stories that you see posted, 50 some on day 1 of the NHL draft alone. That's the hard work of a ton of guys behind the scenes that really do the lion's share of the heavy lifting. Mike Gould is in that group. Colton Davies, Naftali Clinton, Anthony Trudeau, everyone there contributes so much to our team. So needed to give a big shout out to everyone. And I'm just thrilled to be here and continue to grow something.
100%. Today on Free Agency Day, Brendan Bradley did a killer job updating our graphics. Gavin Turnick, Brandon Douglas, and Liam Horrobin were running the socials and making sure everything worked from a tech perspective as well. It was a true team effort. I'm just looking at the YouTube right now. Just over 22,000 people popped into the show today, to the nearly 4,000 who are tuning in live throughout a big chunk of it. You guys were all awesome. So appreciate everyone in the chat. Appreciate getting to do this for another season of Daily Faceoff Live. Hockey fans, enjoy your summer. Enjoy the rest of Free Agent Frenzy. We'll chat again in September.
Thanks for tuning in to Daily Faceoff Live. Make sure you hit the subscribe button to never miss an episode.